What is up, everybody? Happy Friday. Good to see you. It's Jay, it's Craig, it's Sports Clichés. It's episode 7 as we're diving into, I believe, week 14 of the
14.
NFL regular season after a wild Thursday night. Craig, how you doing?
I'm doing good. That game yesterday was fun, if not a complete shit show, but fun.
I mean,
Obviously, we had a lot of fun games last week, too. Looking forward to a fun week of games this week, potentially. There's some weird matchups this week that could be fun, but it'll be fun to talk about.
yeah, absolutely. And we might as well just go dive right into it. I mean, last night's game, that was I don't know, it's amazing how far, how unpredictable this goddamn season's been the entire way through. It's like there is these teams. No teams have the ability. Like it. I usually am a big believer in momentum and teams being able to get on streaks for at least periods of time. And maybe they'll go a little bit more middling or whatever, and they'll take a loss here or there, and maybe start trading and things like that. But for the most part, there's you could kind of bet on the waves. It's these teams are so inconsistent from week in to week out to how they play. The only thing you could really guess or bet on is that they're not going to be able to carry what happened the previous week into the next week, and that's what we saw. Yeah. That's what we saw right there in that game. This Minnesota team coming in, and everybody has written them off for the most part.
They just lost to the Detroit Lions. Yeah, of course,
just gave the Lions their first win in a pretty ugly fashion. As far as that last play, just how they just kind of let it happen in front of them, and a mixture of play calling and maybe defensive effort, who knows, maybe just some bad positioning and just timing from the defense or whatever to just allow that to happen. But then, so everybody's down on them. But then, of course, they're playing Pittsburgh, and they actually get 3 points going in, or against Pittsburgh right there with Pittsburgh coming in. And Pittsburgh coming off of the just wildness they had, obviously, just a few weeks before actually tying that same Detroit Lions team. So the only two teams to have not beaten the Lions this season, we got that game last night. And then obviously, tale of two halves, when they just get absolutely obliterated that first half. Dalvin Cook going completely off of a shoulder injury, into which I didn't expect him to barely play. I'm very surprised he was out on the field after that shoulder injury, but I mean, more power to him. He really he stepped through there, and that looked like it was going to be a runaway game. Looked like it was going to be another boring Thursday night game, and then all of a sudden, Minnesota lets off the gas, and Pittsburgh starts making some plays. I mean, Ben starts hucking the ball down the sidelines, and there's a couple great catches, great effort, and then some PIs, obviously. So just things start going their way, and before you know it, that game is actually close, and really actually takes some effort toward the end to secure it. Quite a nutty game.
It was bizarre the whole way through because Pittsburgh looked dead by the end of the third quarter. Yeah, they just put up a touchdown near the end of the third quarter.
Yeah,
but that made it 29-7. Like the game looked dead. And then all of a sudden they came out in the fourth quarter. And if they had played the way they did in the fourth quarter throughout the whole game, might have been a different result. But that's the problem with Pittsburgh this year, right? And it's the problem with Minnesota too, right? Like we saw the issue why both these teams are right around 500, struggling to stay in the playoff race. We saw it all in display in that game, right? Neither team knows how to close out a game. Neither team really knows how to start a game. There's so much inconsistency between these two teams. The Vikings better be thanking Dalvin Cook and whatever black magic they used to heal his shoulder, because 205 yards and 2 touchdowns, he almost outran what Kirk Cousins threw, right? Like, Kirk Cousins did not have it yesterday, and Dalvin Cook just carried them to that win. He dragged that team kicking and screaming to a win. Um, I hate it. I'm very glad we didn't have to pick this game because I would have definitely been on the Steelers. Uh, Again, like you were saying at the start, hoping that, Steelers got some positive momentum off of the win against Baltimore,
Yeah.
where Baltimore just they played awful, but Pittsburgh won the game. Minnesota coming off of being the first team to lose to Detroit, right? You figured that there might be some momentum coming into this game. Maybe Pittsburgh gets a good start and continues to pile it on, but no. Instead, we get the game that we got yesterday. It was bizarre. Um, yeah, there's only two teams in this league right now that I openly trust to be good teams, and neither one of these two teams are it.
Well, no, of course. I mean, yeah, record says it all as well. Minnesota coming into this game 5-7 off that Detroit loss, and I suppose we'll perhaps touch on that a bit, that game. But the only thing that you could go off of is like that's almost how I felt coming to the game. Is there was actually I was surprised by the line. The first thing I was very surprised by was the line, and that Minnesota was getting the -3 even at home, and even though both teams were pretty middling, it's like, geez, like I'm surprised they're not actually giving, or there's a. I'm surprised Vikings getting points after taking a loss against the Detroit Lions, right? Like that's just surprising result to me.
Looking ahead, there's another line this week that shocks the hell out of me that we'll talk about when we get to this week. But the lines this week in general, I think there's a couple of them that are just really weird. And I think maybe even the odds makers at this point don't quite know where the season is, right? So what I'm seeing more and more of as the season goes on is in some of these close matchups, the home team's just getting the favorite because week to week, everybody plays differently, right? So fade home.
I mean, yeah, home. You figure you're getting at the very least you're getting one of your home field advantages. Some people will suggest you get home cooking as far as refs are concerned. I don't know if that's ever like really the case. I think there's just calls that people will always see that'll be highlighted in their minds if they don't go their team's way, and goddamn the refs if that happens.
Yeah.
That's just natural. But I think the home cooking, obviously, for some of these teams, depending on how their stadiums are built, is the crowd noise, right? That's the one thing you can bank on, is that hopefully, and sometimes we see it the other way. I think I kind of I anticipated Vegas to be a little bit like this. It seems like the Raiders crowd actually comes out in Vegas to where it's not so much of a crazy factor, but and Raiders fans do travel well, but and there are those certain teams that their fans travel very well, so that could be a factor. And if your team doesn't kind of make that noise, it's kind of interesting when a visiting team actually has a really loud pop in an away
Any
stadium.
LA Chargers game.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I was about to get to, basically. And those teams that just don't have that home presence.
Yeah.
I kind of figured Vegas would almost be like that because it's just like it's a destination city right there.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
like
of
how many
course.
people are living in there, but they're actually pretty starved for sports teams over there, right? So they're
And
clinging on to
to be fair, we've seen how good with sports teams they can be in Vegas with the Golden Knights, right?
Precisely.
You put hockey in the city of Vegas, you'd never expect that to work out the way it has. But not only is Vegas a good team, but their fans are actively loud, right? Like I was like you, when I heard the Golden Knights were coming in the league, I thought, Leafs play down there, it's going to be 90% Leafs fans. Oilers and Flames and all those Canadian teams go down there, it's going to be like 90% Canadians. You're going to get the New York fans down there. It's a weekend thing. We can have some fun with it. Vegas, shout out to them, man. They've been waiting for a sports team down there for a while, clearly. And the city has... There's two Vegases that I don't think people realize. And there's the Strip, and then there's the actual city of Vegas, right? Yeah. And the city of Vegas has grown substantially. So shout outs to Vegas. Their sports fans are fantastic. But yeah, there are teams like that. As I joked about the LA Chargers, and the LA Rams probably feel the same way. God, imagine leaving St. Louis to go there. But there's no home presence for those teams. And in a season like this where every team feels so close, right? Like
Yeah.
they're like I said, there's two
It,
teams that I openly trust are good teams. Two. Everybody else is either above average to middling with
it's
a couple of bad teams in there.
I think it's a handful of factors, and because like I do agree, I think teams are a lot closer. It seems like for the most part, even the good teams just can't separate. Right? They take just a bad loss.
Yeah.
All these division leaders, you could look at them, and you're like, yeah, they're at the top right now, but damn, they took that loss against X team, and it's just like you go through a list, and all those teams are different too. Oh, they took a loss against the Jets. Oh, they took a loss against the Seahawks. Oh, they took a loss.
They lost to the Jaguars.
Yeah, it's like, oh, what the hell is this? Exactly, and so like that's happening.
Yeah.
Bad teams are like coming up and even taking games from the good
Benching
teams, right?
From good teams, yeah. And I would argue that the two teams that I think are good don't really have that problem, and it's why I think they're good, right? And I was gonna say, but I'll throw it out right now. It's Arizona and New England,
Right.
right? New England started out the season poor, but they've won 7 in a row now, or whatever the heck it is. And I think we can safely assume that the team that started the season isn't the team we see now. And Arizona, obviously, one of their losses has Colt McCoy at quarterback. That
Yeah,
speaks a lot to Arizona's season.
and I think that was kind of that was the point I was kind of going get to is because these teams are so close now as far as what you would argue probably for each, I would say for each conference your team's maybe number 3 down to what, probably like your number 10 team, really,
I think you
honestly.
could even argue 2 down to about
I mean,
9
like,
or 10.
So like those teams though, they're all right there.
Yeah.
They're all honestly like a couple games out from one another. They probably play obviously amongst them, so there's some head-to-head matchups that'll really decide some things still to come, even this late into the regular season, which we're getting that extra week of football. So, week 14, it's like, think about week 17, that's like an IR now, like that 3-week IR they had to at least be on. You're getting almost to that point at the end of the season.
It is. We're getting to that point where if you're going to put somebody on IR, you better be sure they're not coming back because it's getting close.
Exactly. But the factors, so it's injuries. I think that's obviously been a big factor. Teams like Tampa Bay have suffered pretty badly because they have no cornerbacks, or like the Ravens in that last game where they that Steelers team that just came off that nice little win right there against the Ravens within their division. Then in that game, literally Harbaugh at least claiming that reason going for 2 at the end of the game there, and ultimately what lost them the game.
They were out of cornerbacks.
They're out of quarterbacks. It's like, all right, we get the tie, but can we do anything if Pittsburgh gets the ball? And again, you're kind of like on a coin flip. It's like, hey, you get the ball first and you score a touchdown. It's all gravy, right? But
that's just it. But Pittsburgh's defense,
but you have the opportunity. The game's right there in front of you.
I actually don't disagree with the decision if you are that low on cornerbacks.
Yeah.
Right, and I guess we're kind of getting into the Pittsburgh Baltimore game from last week while we're talking about this.
Sure.
It was a game where Pittsburgh's defense had shown up. Baltimore was having trouble breaking that team down, and if you are that low on cornerbacks, there's no guarantee that you're getting into the end zone even if you get the ball first, right? So I look back on that call, and I think that's a great coaching decision by Jim Harbaugh, even though it failed.
Yeah.
Right? We too often look back on decisions about whether they succeeded or not, and whether that makes them good calls. Right? This was a good call, even though it failed. Play call might have been a little bit questionable, right? You maybe could have called a slightly better play. But if you're that low on cornerbacks, and they were, right? Like, you look at the Baltimore injury list right now, and it's just defensive secondary.
Yeah.
Right? So you're that low on cornerbacks. You go into overtime, it's essentially the same scenario, you assume, right? Ben Roethlisberger's not what he once was, but he's still a good quarterback, right? He'll still find ways to pick apart your linebackers who are going to have to play cornerback, right? Like, they were in a situation where they either won it on that play or they were probably going to lose. They recognized that, and they went for the win. I respect that. I think it's the right call. I know they ended up losing because of it, but there was other factors that went into that decision. I don't fault Baltimore for going for it there. I fault Baltimore for not being able to break down that defense sooner, right? And I fault Lamar Jackson for continuing to be the most inconsistent quarterback known to man, and it being the most frustrating thing. He from from drive to drive, he's a different quarterback. It's not even game to game. Like, he'll come out on one drive, underthrowing guys by 5 yards, looking like he can't do anything, right? Can't get out of the pocket, wants to stay in the pocket and be a pocket passer for some reason. Come out on the next drive and be Lamar Jackson. And you never know which one you're going to get. And you look at that game, and it's not like Pittsburgh's offense overran them, right?
No, of course.
Pittsburgh scored 20 points. Yeah. A team like Baltimore, with the offense they have, should be able to get 20 plus points. And they just couldn't find a way to do it. And once again, Baltimore continues to be the most frustrating team known to man, because in an AFC that's really open right now, right, where it doesn't look like there's only really one team that wants to go for it, Baltimore had a chance to really put themselves into that list, and they didn't do it, right? And Minnesota just put up 36 against Pittsburgh. And I know that's an easy hindsight look, but surely a team with Baltimore's talent needs to be able to put up more than 20, right? Like, you can't fault Baltimore's defense in that game. That's got to be a game where Lamar Jackson and that offense does enough to win you that game, and they didn't.
I mean, I'm thinking this has been a common theme for them, obviously, as far as Baltimore is concerned. Of the offense, yeah, it's like you have these weapons, but I think at times it's like you have like maybe like a single read that Lamar gets. He has like one read he makes, and then he's tucking and running. And teams are now starting to play toward that. They're really doing well. Like there's times you just feel it, like, and I'm not down there on the field or anything like that, but there is times when I'm watching those games, and I'm just like, yeah, this is going to be like a little RPO thing. Maybe Lamar's going to fake it, and he's going to run. And it just like, because they go to that so often, it's no longer, it doesn't have its former effectiveness. I think there's going to be, you have to have a willingness to let him use his arm to move this ball down the field. You have weapons to be able to do that. You have good running backs to be able to do that, and an offensive line that, when healthy, will give you the opportunity to move that ball down the field. The lack of offense that this team's had is, obviously what's kept so many teams close against them. Bad teams keep games close against this Ravens team because they just can't get that separation that they should have. By all means, they should have all the ability and all the weapons to be able to really close out some of these games, but they're just kind of, it's always interesting. It's wild to watch Ravens games. That's one thing I will say. It's fucking fun to watch a Ravens game.
Oh, they're one of the most entertaining teams in the league this year, because you never know what game's gonna happen.
Exactly. So I will give it that. And all being said, you still talk about a team that has gone 8-4. They're closing out, and in what is the wildest division of a season of wild divisions. They're still holding the top.
West would like to talk to you about that, but that's also a very, very interesting division in the AFC North. I get what you're saying, right? And I absolutely agree. My question is legitimately, can I trust Lamar Jackson as a pocket passer? Right? This isn't prime Cam Newton. Right? He's not a guy who's got an arm that's electric. It's okay, but it's inconsistent, right? He's got a bad tendency to underthrow guys. I wonder if maybe with teams containing more on Lamar Jackson, if we're starting to see Lamar's ceiling in the NFL, right? If maybe this is what he is. He can be a good quarterback on a good team, but can he break you through? I don't know. Right? Certainly that arm has to get better if he wants to. It's got to be more accurate. He can't be the pocket passer who sits there, sees a read, doesn't like it, and then either tucks and runs or underthrows a guy. Right? That pocket presence has to be better. That arm has to be better. Because you're right, teams are starting to close him in a little bit. That they're starting to let him have that time in the pocket and just contain him inside. Because if you do that, you're more likely to beat him than if you go for the. It's an interesting scenario where you see it more and more where teams aren't trying to sack Lamar Jackson as much, or rather letting him run into sacks rather than closing down the pocket, right? Because if he stands in the pocket, you're probably beating him, right? It's when Lamar's able to make things happen outside of the pocket when he can make special things happen. But if you can keep him contained, you keep him inside that pocket, you're probably beating the Ravens if you're a good team.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just comes with the simple balance. I think it's one of the classic, especially when you have a guy that has the ability to use their legs and uses them well. I mean, yeah, you get them outside. How do you do that? Well, you got to do it twofold because you can't make it obvious, but it's talked about before for even a guy like Jimmy G. They operate out of this. Establish the run game as best you can. At least make them think it's an option, and then you run some play action off it. You get some bootlegs going. You make the scheme work for you. You have players on the field that will allow you to work that. Give them a nice little just it doesn't have to be too complicated, I think, to have it work for Lamar. But yeah, it's surprising how their offense it's like it's amazing because it will be like first drive they're firing, it looks great, and then it's like 2/4 and then they'll come alive again in the fourth.
Yeah.
Just like, what the hell did you just do for 2/4 right there? You had it at first, and then you're able to rally back and maybe make a game close, or actually come out and win the games. And that's they've definitely done that as far as rallying back. And it's just, damn,
And
these
to be
games don't
fair,
have to be got that damn close. They're still winning the games though, so
yeah.
it's like.
And to be fair, they nearly did it last week, right? Like,
yeah.
For all that we're talking about here, they were a 2-point conversion away from winning that game.
Mm-hmm.
Being not only top of the AFC North, but I don't know how their tiebreaker works with New England, but they would have been right near the top of the AFC, right? Like, we're that close to talking about this, and instead it feels like there's more question marks around them again. And going into this week, there's more question marks around them again. And
right.
It's one of those things where sooner or later, we got to see who the real Baltimore Ravens are. Are they a contender in the AFC who can play a 60-minute game and really push you? Which is probably what you're going to need in the playoffs, right? You look at Buffalo, you look at, New England. One of those teams is going to be the top wild card. And right now, the way the divisions are standing, none of those division leaders wants to play those teams. Right? None of those division leaders wants to play those teams. So you got this huge pack of teams that are from second to fourth. None of them want to be the team that plays New England or Buffalo. That's a bad matchup for everybody, I think. And I think everybody understands that. So Baltimore here is going to have to get themselves to a point where they can start winning games consistently, 60-minute football, in the case that they are the team that has to play Baltimore or New England. Because guess what? Belichick's going to have his team playing 60-minute football, and it's not like Buffalo's been bad this year. So, I don't know. I don't know if Baltimore's that team. We'll see.
I mean, Buffalo's definitely let some things slip, and they gotta find some ground as well. I mean, that their play calling in that game last week, that absolutely, just what a comedy of it, of
Did you
just
see the pregame thing with the kicks where they were showing the kickers kicking extra points and they'd go up and just
yeah. I mean, it's just absolutely vicious. And so, I mean, I understand some of the. It's kind of funny how it worked out. Both of them worked out opposite ways. I think a lot of people obviously might as well. I think just jump right into it. That game was wild, and a lot of people will look at New England and the fact that you're just gonna just continuously run the ball and just ran the ball down their throats without you know much of a care if it worked or not. Basically, the willingness to just take 3 on outs because you ran the ball on 3rd and 7. It's just hilarious to me. It is like, nope, fuck it, we're not gonna throw the ball. Like it's just
Listen, I don't hate the strategy though, right? You're playing in conditions like that. You got a rookie quarterback who's never been anywhere close to anything that crazy. Make it easier for him, right? Bill Belichick's no idiot. Been there, done that. He recognized the game from the start. He knew right away this wasn't going to be a 44-42 game. It was always going to be 14-10, 21-17. It was always going to be an ugly game. Bill was ready for that. I don't think the Bills have the personnel to be ready for a game like that. They can't run the ball.
So here's the so everybody's going to look at the New England side of it, but the more surprising side to me is, given everything that you just said right there, Josh Allen throws that ball 30 times in that game.
Can't do it in conditions like that, right?
They run the ball less than that. The fact that there was even a split that went more passing than rushing in that game, as much as they don't like to give Devin Singletary the rock, it was amazing that they only rushed the ball with him 10 times in that game.
You can't throw the ball 30 times in wins like that and expect to win. Like, I know you look at the numbers and you go, "Oh man, Josh Allen was off." No, he wasn't. You can't throw the ball in that. Right? Like, you throw the ball any more than 5 yards, it's going to move on you. And his receivers were having trouble with it, and you could see Josh Allen was having trouble with it.
I mean, it's like, it's the thing with those wins too is like, it's consistent to a degree, but then it comes in bursts, right?
Yes.
And so you can't even predict the curve. Like, you might be able to, like, if it's a constant win, you're like, okay, I gotta kind of maybe finesse it a little bit. It'll give a little hook. Same thing with kicking, obviously. With that, but then, you're gonna have it what they showed in that pregame video with those kicks, and it's just gonna be like, okay, I think I adjusted for the hook well enough, and then it's just like, push. No, actually, here's a 40-mile gust to that side. That ball's going to go fucking flying. And then that showed in the very last play of the game right there. A throw that, it's like that ball, I think, ends up 2 yards behind the receiver.
Way behind him.
And it was just like, it doesn't look good. But, I can see that happening given the game. But at that point, they kind of had to throw it, given the scenario right there. You kind of had to get that stuff. But that was the more surprising thing for me to take away from that is the amount of passing that Buffalo did do in that game. Just given how bad it was.
To me, that game was a coaching win. Now, I don't think, like, don't get me wrong, New England played well, and their running backs certainly did a fantastic job of making themselves reliable. Obviously, Damian Harris, the average is a little bit skewed by the 55-yard touchdown or whatever the heck it was. But, it's only a 3.2 average, but 78 yards on 24 carries in conditions like that where you don't have the luxury of throwing it, and the Bills know that you don't have the luxury of throwing it, you take that. That's a good game from Ramondre Stevenson. It's a good game from Damian Harris. Hell, even Brandon Bolden only got 4 touches, but he was productive when he got the ball, right?
So
Bill Belichick recognized the game, I think, and made it really simple on his guys. We're going to run the ball, and we're going to run the ball, and we're going to run the ball, and we're going to run the ball. Because that's what we can do, right? We're not going to be able to throw the ball consistently 20 times in this, right? So we're just going to keep pounding away, and we'll chip, and we'll let our defense, which we really believe in, use the conditions to their advantage, and they did. Right? I think Bill Belichick won a coaching battle in that game more than anything else.
Yeah, I mean, and the funny thing is like, I think that was kind of what I think some Bills players got fired up after the fact. In that, was their disappointment of, how they ran the ball and they were able to run the ball effectively. And they're pissed off. They're like, we gave up 14 points. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like, and that's you can kind of put that out sideways. Like, well, yeah, we only gave up 14 points. We expect the offense to do a little bit better than 10 points. I mean, that's how that game was going to shake out for the most part,
Always.
given the condition. It was going to be an ugly game. A lot of people took the under, I think, on those that over under for the points for sure. But it's kind of like, I don't know. You still felt like you could have just done so much more with the weapons you have. I mean, I brought up Singletary. You have Josh Allen back there, so try to get him in some space. I know Zach Moss is a decent backup there for him as well. It's just kind of amazing that they couldn't generate. I know New England definitely has a pretty damn good offense, and the conditions work for them as well, and they utilize that well. It's kind of an embarrassment that the Bills only put up 10 points in that game. They have had these letdown games. It's kind of funny, completely opposite conditions between the two. That loss to the Jags. You're talking about probably incredibly humid, dry, hot as hell conditions. Probably sucked. Just like it just kind of, you can't breathe in that shit. And then you have that cold as hell, windy. It's probably tough to breathe in that too. It's like they're just kind of getting hit from both ends in these extreme
Had a
weather
little bit of
conditions.
snow before the game too, so that field was slick, right? My thing is, so the one that frustrated me was, okay, situation like this, cold game, you want to make it you want to make it a physical game. That's how you're gonna make gains in this game. How do you only give Matt Breida one touch?
Oh well, he had that mistake early. He just didn't take that handoff well. It's something he's had trouble with before. I love Burita. He was explosive as hell from what I've seen of him, but just a little loose with the football, and that really hurt them early. But
I
yeah,
get
it's
that.
crazy. He didn't
But
get more
there's
touches.
another team that we'll talk about who benched a running back that probably shouldn't have because of a mistake made early, and I hate that premise, right? I hate when a coach goes up to a player and says, "You cannot make mistakes. You will not see the field anymore." Right?
Yeah.
Like, especially in a situation like Matt Breida's, where that's the exact kind of running back you need for this game, right? He had the bad handoff that led to the fumble. That's a bad one. I get that. You still need to understand that we need something out of our running back core,
Yeah.
right? Singletary can give it to you, but in a game like this, a guy like Matt Breida is going to give you something. And I just felt like he needed to get the ball more. And I think it sets a bad precedent when you tell your players you cannot make mistakes. Ever.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something to where right now he's fallen to, third in their depth chart, it
Yeah.
seems like. And you're already going to be on limited touches, and then that happens, and it's just like you just don't perhaps see a place for him, especially when your offense isn't going, too. If your offense is going a little bit more, you're driving the ball down the field, you just have more offensive touches in general, there's going to be a little bit more opportunity. But when you're that far down the depth chart, it's going to be a little bit harder to find plays for you, just as a numbers game. Yeah, it'll be interesting. I think he's a guy who definitely has, he is a good back. If he's able to clean up some of those, those little mistakes of just ball control and stuff,
Yeah.
he's definitely going to be serviceable for anybody's backfield. Yeah, I just think in that game it was kind of funny how I felt it was going to play out, and I thought it was actually going to be like there was going to be some nice pop to it. Was how the wins, because obviously you have you're changing side every time. And it seemed
Yeah.
like the wind was, distinctly blowing downfield one way than it was another. You're literally kicking we saw those
Yeah.
punts. They're either just getting absolutely bombed off that or the
The
kickoff,
Jake Bailey 15-yarder,
or
right?
yeah,
That
exactly, the grounder and
he
all that.
put in. Well, no, the 15-yarder was the one he
Well,
tried to put in the air,
yeah,
and it went, oh no.
yeah, he had the grounder. There was the grounder
The,
before that.
which was the smarter punt of the two, honestly,
Yes.
right? In conditions like that where you got the wind blowing in your face, you hit it low and you try to get it on the ground and let it bounce and hope that you get a couple good bounces.
Yeah.
That was really the only situation you had punting into that wind. But even still, right? Like even when you got the wind at your back, right? It wasn't necessarily blowing straight,
Yeah.
right? There was a
Sure.
little bit of a hook to it. So if you were on the wrong hash, you were screwed. And we saw that with field goal kick in the third quarter, I think it was for Buffalo, where they were on the wrong hash, right? They needed to get the ball to the left hash. They were on the right hash. The wind had a slight blow to the right, and because of how powerful those gusts was, he put it up, it looked good, and then it wasn't.
Yeah.
Right? So it didn't matter which way you were facing, really. You obviously had an advantage if the wind was at your back, but it was still going to cause havoc for you if you didn't set up the ball correctly.
Yeah. And yeah, definitely for a kicking game, I think it's always going to be a factor. But obviously, for how the offenses ran, it played a big factor as well.
Yeah.
I was surprised though because basically Buffalo started with the wind at their back, and they were
Yes.
coming out and they were throwing the ball, and the Patriots ran the ball. And I'm like, okay, that's actually pretty smart. When you're going into the wind, you stay very conservative. You don't allow your quarterback to be throwing into the wind. Balls will just die on you. They'll take really bad angles. It'll be a lot harder to do that. But I figured once the field flipped between the quarters, that we would have seen Mac Jones throwing the ball a little bit more once the wind got to his back, right? You have a little bit more comfort. Now you're not throwing into the wind. And that's how I figured. I figured we kind of have alternating offensive scheming going on. But for some reason, it was just the same throughout. Didn't matter which side of the field they're going down. The Buffalo was going to be willing to throw the ball way more than I thought they were going to. And New England just ran the ball except for 3 times when Mac Jones passed. One of those, the nice little play action, you could tell the wind, like it got away.
Yeah.
And it was close, but it was a hell of a snare. So
Hell of a catch.
yeah.
I don't know. I think you got a rookie quarterback, grew up in Mississippi, played his college ball in Alabama. He's never seen a game like that before, right? He came to Buffalo and it was snowing. Never seen that before. The winds are ridiculous. You don't get games like that in Mississippi and Alabama. It's usually a pretty calm game, right? It's usually pretty chill. He decided to take the ball out of Mac Jones's hands and give it to running backs who have been very good for him this season. Smart call, right? Smart call. It paid off gangbusters. New England gets a massive statement victory in that division, right? That New England defense continues to just be absolute menaces to teams. And now they're in control of their own destiny.
It's definitely a crazy, they've now gone on a streak. They're 7 straight wins. You're talking 2-4 after 6 weeks there to start the season. It was just like I would have said, at that time, like that's, I expect them actually probably been a little bit more middle line. They really didn't look good for some of those early weeks there, right? And obviously, you have some growing pains with a rookie quarterback. There's a little bit of that. He didn't, Mac Jones didn't really play too terribly during those weeks at all, but they definitely weren't going.
Certainly improved.
Yeah,
and he has certainly improved in the last little time for sure. I think a lot of what that early season was them also trying to figure out where their playmakers were, right? You look at those first few weeks, Ramondre Stevenson wasn't getting the ball as much, right? He's become a huge part of that offense. You look at those first few weeks as far as receiving goes, and it's become abundantly clear that Jonnu Smith is a big part of this receiving core, and he's kind of grown into Mac Jones's guy, his safety valve, right? So I think those are things that you got to learn, right? They're not inherent. You never know going into the season 100% that this is going to be my guy, unless it's like a Debo Samuel, Calvin Ridley, right? Somebody like that who it's like, okay, this guy's always going to be your guy. New England didn't really have that coming into this year. So Mac Jones had to find his comfort levels with certain guys, right? Whether it was Aguilar, whether it was Jonnu Smith, whether it was Ramondre Stevenson, right? Damian Harris, right? He's had to find who his weapons are, and he's found them now. And New England, as an offense, feels much more complete now than it was early in the season, even though it didn't look bad, right? It certainly feels like a more complete offense now. And obviously that defense is unbelievable, right? That New England defense is unbelievably good.
Yeah.
It's a system that Belichick's comfortable with. It's a system that the players within it are comfortable with. You know, you bring back a leader like Kyle Van Noy, you get a guy like J.C. Jackson, and all of a sudden everything clicks, right? And that defense has clicked. And to me, I think New England's the scariest team in the AFC right now. They're the only team that's shown any level of consistency throughout the season in the AFC. I don't think any AFC team can argue that they've shown the level of consistency that New England's showing right now.
No, they're showing the most. I mean, obviously you rack off, 7 straight wins there. That's going to be the case. Yeah, the inconsistency would be what they've shown in this good middle chunk of the season to what they did show early on. That's fine. Teams could obviously evolve as they have.
Yeah.
And it will be interesting. I mean, I was very skeptical myself. These kind of this 5 weeks here, they had. I would say after that Atlanta game, you're talking about 2 tough games back to back, bye week, and then 2 games after that. It's kind of interesting that they have the bye week right here. They, obviously, you'll take a late bye week most of the time. I think as a team, you want to be as healthy as you can be going in to the end of the season and into the postseason. There, maybe a little bit of a. It's a little unfortunate for them in some regards because they are fairly healthy.
And you'd rather keep the train rolling right now for sure.
Yeah, and they're going to have to go into, now it's going to be the opposite situation, and we'll talk about it even more next week. But that next game that they have against the Colts, depending on what happens this week, that's going to be very, very, I think a completely opposite game almost from what we saw right here.
Yeah, where you got to worry almost exclusively about the run, right?
Yeah.
Like Carson Wentz can get it done, but certainly you're more worried about Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah. You're also talking about, nice roof facility, that sort of thing. You're going to be within, so your conditions are going to be a little bit better. Offense is probably going to be firing off a little bit more on both sides there. So probably a little bit more of the not just run the ball, 100 times.
Yeah, we'll get to see a little bit more of Mac Jones' development in that game for sure.
Should be a good one.
Against the Colts defense, who, if we want to just quickly touch on this game, I don't think anybody was surprised by it. But anytime you hold an NFL team to a shutout, even if it's technically a college football team that's playing in the NFL, you feel good about that. And that Colts defense is feeling good right now. They've been playing really well recently. Obviously, Jonathan Taylor continues to do Jonathan Taylor things. He's disgusting. I wish we could have replayed the season where Derrick Henry didn't get hurt. We could have seen these two just running all over defenses for that rushing title, and maybe that would have caused a bit more love in the MVP conversation. Because honestly, the fact that Jonathan Taylor's not getting enough love in the MVP conversation is sad. Yeah, where would this Colts team be without Jonathan Taylor? Listen, I don't hate Carson Wentz, but I certainly wouldn't be trusting Carson Wentz to just carry my team to a playoff spot the way Jonathan Taylor is right now. But that defense does a good job, and they have names, right? You look at Darius Leonard, DeForest Buckner, Kari Willis. They got names on that defense, but it is similar to New England, a defense that plays a system well, and that the names help, but they're not the reason that defense is successful.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that line,
Yeah,
when it's going, it is scary as hell. So, um, and then yeah, that linebacking core, you have some great defensive backs there. So just, yeah, those defensive teams. I mean, when they're able to just keep healthy, and that's been the trouble I think lately is a lot of those teams. It seems like just a bit more on the defensive side than the offensive side, and maybe something to take a look at the numbers on it. I feel like some offensive players, like obviously you have someone like Derrick Henry go down. That's huge, right? That really changes your your effectiveness on the offense. You have to scheme a little bit differently. I think even a team like the Titans has tried to run the ball still a decent amount even without Henry in there. To obviously a little bit less effectiveness in that regard, but they're still
clearly.
trying to do it, right?
Yeah,
And who knows? Maybe that's a situation in which you keep working at it like that, and you get it back more and more comfortable. They start, perhaps seeing the holes a little bit better. They're able to bounce off a little bit more. No reason. I think with the way that team's offense is shown, when they don't do that and they really just try to rely on Tannehill's arm, you see how that goes, right? So we have that situation, but
yeah,
I think also for yeah, just injuries in general. Ah man, like I think we saw it last week with the Niners. I think a lot of people saw that it was the big thing was Debo wasn't in, and absolutely that offense looks a little different, definitely a bit different without Debo in there, right?
yeah.
The dynamic plays start to go away. They're not doing the jet sweeps as much. They're not, you know, just the running back being able to, pretty much come out of anywhere on their plays. That stuff starts to go away, right? But I think even the bigger hit than that was the loss of Fred Warner. Fred Warner not being in that game is huge, I think, for the Niners team. And I think that's huge for a lot of teams. If you start to lose guys like your middle linebacker, I think for a team like Seattle, losing a guy like Jamal Williams, you're one of your your strong safety, a guy that's going to command the middle of the field a little bit, who's really going to be helpful in your run stop game and that sort of thing. I think those defensive players sometimes could even be more impactful when you lose a real star defensive guy. We've seen your star corners go down for teams, and as soon as that guy goes down, the other team starts to pick him apart. Oh, you got the guy off the bench now, he has to cover over there. We're going to throw at him continuously, and he's going to draw PIs, and he's going to give up a big play, and it's just, you see that time and time again in the NFL. I think the idea of really attacking the vulnerable, unexperienced player on the defensive side of the ball is even more more of a threat than the offensive player going down, right?
100%. And, it's a simple formula to look at, right? If you have a defense that doesn't give up points, you will always have a chance to win. Whereas if you have an offense that's not scoring points, if your defense is not giving up points, you still have a chance to win,
Yeah.
right? But if your defense starts leaking points like crazy, sometimes it doesn't matter how good your offense is, right? Absolutely. I think
Yeah.
a good defense losing a big piece of their defense is much harder to replace than a good offense losing an offensive piece. Uh, and I think that's interesting because the way the NFL seems to think it's going, you would think it doesn't reflect that, right? Obviously, offensive players getting a lot more money than defensive players, having a lot more value to most teams than offensive players. But you're not wrong. The Niners really missed Fred Warner last week. You look at going into this week, right? Buffalo got a bit of a reprieve last week. And it's going to be really interesting to see how they play without Tre'Davious White,
Right.
right? They got the elements to help them out last week. This week, they're not going to be so lucky.
Right.
So we'll see if that Buffalo pass defense can hold up without their best cornerback, right? It's something where you lose a guy like that, and it makes a difference on both sides of the ball,
I mean,
right?
who do they have coming up? They got to go into fucking Tampa Bay and play the Bucks. They got to play Tom Brady next. And he's obviously they've had some situations with his weapons, that sort of thing. But they got to, they got Gronk running out there. They got weapons all over the board on that team. They got a solid running game. Um, and this is the Buffalo team that's traveled down to Florida and not looked very good at all. So I'm very suspect of them going into this next week. And with these back-to-back potential losses, if it doesn't go well for them in Tampa Bay, they're out of the playoffs in that AFC.
Yeah, and obviously, uh, they're going to be missing AJ Klein and Star Lotulelei too. That's going to hurt them a lot. Um, yeah, it's interesting because it's not the sexiest positions in the world, right? It's not your wide receivers, your tight ends, your quarterbacks, the ones that everybody wants, but your linebackers. We talked about how much losing Vita Vea would have hurt Tampa Bay,
Yeah, interior
right?
defensive
That
line.
that
Yeah,
interior nose tackle guy who nobody looks at as a sexy piece, but boy, you notice him when he's not there, right? You notice when Fred Warner's gone in that linebacking core. You notice when Tre'Davious White is gone in that cornerback core, right? You notice when that box hunting strong safety isn't in that box anymore, right? There's certain positions that might not be as sexy, but they certainly stand out more when they're gone, right? And I think, as you brought up with San Francisco, yeah, losing Debo hurts. They didn't have the explosive playability that they would have with them. But losing Fred Warner cost them that game more, I
no.
think. I think with Fred Warner in that lineup, there's no way that Seahawks team puts up 30 on them.
Yeah, yeah. Can't help but it's one of those things to where I love a lot of the other linebackers that are playing out there for the Niners. I mean, Al Shazier has been a wonderful surprise in there. You have some unfortunate injuries, some guys that have just not been able to go as well for them. So injuries, they've kind of haunted the Niners in that regard for a couple years now. But yeah, it's middle linebacker especially. I think those guys, those are the commanders of your offense. So those are guys that are seeing the field, probably seeing the play the most, are going to be making audibles and calls on the field. Um, Going to be probably working with that defensive coordinator as much as anybody, right? So when you take that guy off the field, and historically a quarterback that the Niners have just struggled with. It doesn't matter who's been defensive coordinator for his career, but Russell Wilson has been able to just always seemingly do some work, and then you start to add in the other things for if we're to talk about that game a bit. Just the mistakes abound. It's the things that you can't do. It's the turnovers that we had been able to avoid. The Niners have been able to avoid for a bit there. They're all of a sudden they're just immediately Jimmy has a pretty bad one early, and then they just kind of get sloppy in that regard. But even more so, they're just committing penalties left and right, and they're just giving them free ones. I mean, in one of those drives, they literally gave. I think the Seahawks probably got the ball. They had a nice little return. They got the ball at the 40. I think commit two roughing the passer penalties. You give them half the field to the touchdown on that. They barely needed to move the damn ball. So it's like you're giving an offense that you already for some reason or another seem to struggle against within your division. Give them give them two of their only 4 wins out of the season now, right? For the Seahawks. Just a little bit the Niners' kryptonite, I guess, in that regard, but also being able to take advantage of a guy like Fred Warner not being there. And yeah, you're missing a little bit of that explosiveness with a guy like Debo.
Yeah, for sure. And then you look at talking about playoff races, right? You look at how nice that win would have been for San Francisco and really clawing their way into that playoff race and really getting stuck in. Instead, you're 6-6, right? Instead, you're right there with the pack. And it's kind of a disappointing one. And again, it's not like they got an easy one this week, right? And it that was a game where you really felt like there was a chance to maybe pile on some suffering in Seattle, and instead it's a tough loss to take and one that causes some concern,
I
I
mean,
think.
yeah, it was always going to be a scramble. I mean, you're talking about 6-6 to 7-5. Obviously, that puts them in the second slot in the wild card there instead of the last slot. But yeah, all these teams, everybody just hovering so
Everybody.
close to 500. It's on both sides. You know, pretty much
Yep.
both conferences are just incredibly uh, just muddled in there. And you got weeks to go right now. I mean, you got 5-7 teams realistically that you rally off some wins, and based on how other teams are just kind of dropping games here and there, absolutely the chance for any of those guys that are even a couple spots out of making the playoffs right now being able to rally off some wins and being able to do it. But obviously you can't like put your mark on anybody to do that outside of perhaps your New England's, your Arizona's, as far as being able to rely on them to win games every week, sort of thing. Like, it's tough going for everybody right now.
Yeah.
The ability to play the same game week in week out is not there. I think again, the injury factor when you're talking about some of your star players, I think it's going to make a huge difference.
Yeah.
And I think that showed definitely in that game. Uh, I don't know. Take a look at last week. I don't know.
The
I don't
only
have
other
much
game
other
that
ones. Yeah, if you had
the
another
only
one,
other
go
game
for it.
that really stands out to me is that Washington win over Las Vegas.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Right? Like, big win for Washington. Really trying to stake their claim to not just a potential playoff spot, but they're trying to get to breathing down Dallas's neck now. And we'll talk about the game this week, obviously, where they played Dallas at home. Could be a big one for them to really try to stake a claim at that division title. I've been very negative of Taylor Heineke. I'll openly admit that. He's played some good games here recently, and Antonio Gibson, you got running the ball now. Don't look now. JD McKissick's gonna be back, right? Like, it it's a scary team, right? That Washington football team. The emails are
I
sticking around,
I did.
and
Hey, last week I did say, hey, Antonio Gibson, not so bad, and actually has
nope,
carried the majority of the load this year
he
for
has.
that team. They are winning games with them. They have been winning games with them. So, and that's great. I mean, you love that. You love that as the team for their team because the numbers aren't incredibly flashy for Heineke, but they're getting it done.
And he's consistent,
He's not.
right?
He's not. I mean, he's not even
You
throwing for
know,
200 yards, but he's getting it fucking done. It's like
you know what it is? He's doing what Fitzpatrick did for them last year. He's doing enough to keep them in games, right? He's not necessarily winning you those games. Now Fitzpatrick can win games, absolutely. Uh but he's doing enough to keep you in games. And with the way that Washington defense has finally sprung back to life, right? Early in the season, all everybody was talking about was what happened to Washington's defense. Well, they're back. Right, Washington's defense is back now. It looks like they're back to doing the things that we're used to them doing. That's a scary team. This is not a fun team to come up and play against right now because they're confident. They're on a bit of a roll. They've won 4 in a row, right?
Yep.
And they got their defense playing back to the level that we expected them to. If Taylor Heineke can do enough to keep them in games, and that defense continues to do what we think they can do, that's not an easy out for anybody.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of one of those. It was an interesting game too, because obviously you look at the end score and you're like, oh, that's a little bit of a uglier score. What exactly happened there? And you take a look at the stat numbers. It's like it doesn't actually look too bad as far as some of the Raiders' side. I would say as far as their offensive numbers are concerned, it just never fully clicked. I mean, obviously you want Josh Jacobs to get more than 52 yards on the ground for you. They just didn't have anything on the run game. I
No.
suppose that, but yeah, obviously Derek's Carr's numbers don't look too bad. they're able to move down the field, but they get stopped every time. Like it was a
Yep.
nice little bend don't break defense, obviously uh, from the football team. They seemingly, and that's going to keep you in games. Hey, all right, yeah, you're doing great between the 20s. You can move the ball down the field for us, but or against us. But yeah, once you get around there, no, we're gonna make Carlson kick a field goal time and
Yep.
time again, and that's just we're gonna do just enough as far as points at our side to win those games. It's pretty impressive how they have won multiple games like this.
Yep.
But this one was a little. They did it. They did previously the when you talk about they had their one game. I'm trying to think of who they were playing. That was it. New England,
Tampa Bay.
Tampa Bay. Yes, thank you. Other Brady team. Um, when they just, I think 9+ minutes on a drive to end the game with that one,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And again, you look at the number of points they're giving up in this 4-game win streak, and it speaks a lot, right? The most they've given up in it is 21 to the Panthers. Other than that, 19, 15, 15.
Yeah.
Right? Like they're move the ball. Go ahead. They don't care if you move the ball. They're not going to let you score easily. It's going to be a challenge. They're going to force you to kick field goals. They're going to force you to do things that you're uncomfortable doing. They're going to get turnovers. They turned over Brady a couple times, right? They didn't get any against the Raiders, but they got a couple against uh the Panthers. They got a couple fumbles out of Cam Newton, right? Like they're gonna turn the ball over. And if you're not ready to get ugly points, you're not going to get many, right? They're not going to get beat by the 40, 50-yard balls. They're just not, right? They're going to force you to get ugly points. And I don't know, that's a tough team to play against when you can't just huck the ball down the field and get touchdowns for free.
Yeah. The one interesting thing I think for me for them or about them is that how they won that game was the opposite, though. It was the opposite of how they had to win that game against Tampa Bay. Against Tampa Bay. Uh, Kind of looking, they had a score in the beginning of that fourth, and then gave up a quick one back to the Raiders, who are unable to score that 2 point, which ends up being your decider.
Massive. Yep.
Raiders still then, toward the end of the game, get a field goal, go up on you. You have 2 minutes left, and yeah, you get a really, Heineke's able to put it together for you, at least get you in a field goal position, get you the win. I mean, so impressive in that regard. It was a game that they more or less kind of had, and you'd feel pretty good, 14-6, up just with the one possession, given on how your defense had stepped up and didn't allow touchdowns. But then you got to be worried. I mean, you give up that touchdown pretty quickly after putting one up yourself, and it's like, oh no, if that Oakland offense gets going, like it has shown, it can move pretty goddamn well when Carr's been going. I don't know. That was quite surprising. It was it's definitely a testament to even when not getting the turnovers, that Redskins are able to just get stops, like just continuously able to get stops and really just eat up clock in the middle of that throughout that quarter. Kept a minute.
I don't have it written down here, but a fun fact stat out of that last game that fascinated me: the Las Vegas Raiders are 6-1 when Derek Carr throws for 300+ yards, and 0-5 when he does not.
Wow.
So you want to know how much Derek Carr means to winning games for them, and how much Derek Carr throwing the ball means to winning games for them? That's your stat for it, right? Like they just. It's such a bizarre offense because you have Josh Jacobs, right? And you'd figure that he could be a big part of you winning games, but it just doesn't turn out that way. They really rely on Derek Carr bombing the ball,
Yeah.
right? And Washington did a good job of making sure he couldn't do that, right? Only threw for 249 on 28 passes, giving him a lot of short stuff, right? Take your 7, 8 yards, right? Get your first downs if you can, but you're not getting beyond that, right? And if Derek Carr can't bomb the ball, and he's got a great arm, right? And it's got incredible accuracy downfield. He can do it, but if you don't let him do it, Vegas is going to struggle to beat you.
Yeah. I mean, they've gone through obviously so much, so you kind of understand the up and down that they've had in their season.
Oh,
But
100%.
but it's surprising, like, man, when that offense, when things are clicking, you're just like, it's amazing that they have. Usually, a team that kind of only puts up 15 points like that, they look very middling. They've looked like that so many of these games. Um, it's surprising to see that flash in the pan from them every now and then. They'll have that who knows? This next week, I think they're going into Kansas City. I think everybody's expecting them to lay an egg in that game. KC to still be riding the high that they have, and oh yeah, Chiefs are back. But Raiders have always played the Chiefs pretty damn well, and this is a team that shows they can hang, they can play very well. So, I mean, who knows going forward into that? And I suppose. Unless we have any other games to talk about in that previous week, I think we kind of, yeah, we hit on the good ones, and I think we can start diving into this next week's games.
For sure.
I will put this out there as a lead up going into this week's picks. This is I hate this week. This week's is
Sucks.
rough. This is I don't think I've ever looked at a line more than the lines that we have here, and I'm just like, I just actually like hesitating, like I don't want to, I gotta pick against this. Like how can you anticipate with how inconsistent these teams have been? But this should be fun.
Like I said, there's one game this week with a big spread that I'm confident in my pick, and weirdly enough, it's not even a team I'm picking to win.
There you go.
Everybody else, I'm like, I don't know. Maybe there's a lot of just big spreads for teams in games that I could easily see not being big spread games. I don't know. It's a shit week.
It is. It is. But it will be fun. This week I have, and I think perhaps Craig has joined me a little bit more on this. I think I second guessed and I was deep diving into the stats a little too much last week. This week, these are a lot of gut feels. At first, I was looking at some of these games and I was starting to do the same thing. And it was pissing me off because it was so inconsistent across the board. You just look and you have just another stat across the board that could like almost directly contradict it. Or you take a look at their past games and how they performed against similar what you feel teams, and it's like they're all similar teams. There's so many gray areas. So these are some pure gut picks here going into this week. I have done decently in that. I had the 8-4 a couple weeks ago. That was some gut picks on that one. Last week we unfortunately went 4-9. Craig went 6-7, so not too shabby.
I stuck around that 500 mark again. I want to get away from it. There's only the one week I was bad. Every other week I've stuck right around the freaking 500 mark. And I want to get a good week behind me, a nice winning week.
And speaking of the 500 mark, the first game we'll dive into, it's going to be the Cleveland Browns. They're going to be hosting those Baltimore Ravens, that top of the division team that we have no idea how to feel about. Cleveland sitting at 6-6 and getting a -3 at home here. Baltimore Ravens coming in at 8-4. Baltimore Ravens had just come off that tough loss against that Pittsburgh Steelers team. Cleveland Brown actually coming off a bye, but previous game was a loss to this Baltimore Ravens team. So a little interesting as far as the scenarios of how these teams are coming into this week. the highs and lows of the season kind of playing into it. How are you feeling about this one, Craig?
This is the game where I saw the line and I was like, really? I get that Cleveland's at home, but it's not like they've been any more consistent than Baltimore. And Baltimore's the team at the top of that division who, oh, by the way, have beaten Cleveland recently. I don't get this 3-point line. I do have a couple things written down here. Cleveland is 1-6 against the spread in its last 7 games. Been kind of bad. Uh, they've only scored more than 17 points once since October 10th, which is not good.
Yeah.
They're gonna be without Njoku and Schwartz and maybe Jarvis Landry too. So a team that already struggles to pass the ball is going to be razor thin at those positions. When they played each other a couple weeks ago, Baltimore held the Browns to 40 rushing yards. Right? If they even let the Browns double that total, Baltimore's going to win this game. Right? I don't think Cleveland can run for under 100 and win this game. And I don't think Cleveland can run for over 100 here. I got Baltimore. I think Baltimore wins. I got them outright, but if you're going to give me 3 points on top of it, sweet.
So, interesting going into this one. So, yeah, seeing obviously kind of the last game that they've literally played be that loss against Baltimore on the road. Maybe a little different you feel about that. Is one thing to go into. Obviously, this is a Baltimore team that has won games by if this spread was on the other side, if this was a -2.5,
it would be harder for me if
it'd
this
be
game,
way
if the spread was
it'd be
flipped.
so tough. That being said, and this is going to be a little bit in how you might see a lot of these going down today. As far as my picks are concerned, nothing has made any goddamn sense this season.
God's telling you, Cleveland.
I'm taking Cleveland. I'm taking Cleveland because I feel like they will run the ball a bit more effectively than what they showed in that previous game. This is a team that has been absolutely thrashed, and at least coming off a bye, hopefully another week healthy, you start to see a little bit. I thought that them losing Conklin is a really bad loss for them. As far as the tackle's concerned. They lost Jack Conklin. That was prior to that bye week, right? That's tough. Marlon Humphrey, unfortunately, going down for the Ravens. He's now on IR with the torn pec muscle. So that's unfortunate.
Real tough one.
And you'd already lost a couple of your safeties prior to this. So you're already in a tough way as far as your secondary is concerned. You obviously have Baker banged up back there, but hopefully, shoulder will be feeling a little bit better for him. Hopefully we'll be able to get a little bit more time. I mean, obviously, he's getting banged around back there no matter what. Baker's not been having the funnest time with his offensive line in front of him as well. And take Conklin out of that, that's going to be even more pressure. That all being said, I think they will run the ball a bit better than they have been showing. I think the bye week will help the team. They're playing at home. I think it will be a damn close game as all these Baltimore Ravens games are close. It could easily be the other way. I just think things have they've been so backwards that I think there was a lean. Like, how the hell, my initial thought when I saw the line is, how the hell is Cleveland getting points even at home?
Yeah.
Then I was like, you know what, really thinking about it, like, this could absolutely be the game that they take one real quick, and then again, it's all muddled in the AFC North yet again, Cincy, depending on what they do. So I'll take Cleveland on this one. So that'll be.
Can't argue it. I had trouble with this one, but ultimately, like, I did the same thing as you did, to be honest with you. I had all the stats. I went with my gut on this one. I saw the line right away and thought Baltimore should win this. And I don't know. I just, like, the Browns would have to probably triple what they ran the last time against Baltimore to beat them in this game. And I don't know if they can do that.
Moving right along, we're going to go into this one, one of the wild lines of many wild lines, I think, as far as the size of it. Very interesting one, though, given the positioning of the two teams right now. You have the 2-10 Jacksonville Jaguars heading into Tennessee against the 8-4 Titans. Titans at home getting -9. Actually, now I'm seeing online right here. I'm seeing -8.5. So a slight
That's
adjustment.
what I had too. I did
Minus
have
eight
mine.
and a half. So we'll adjust that there. Um, Obviously, this Jacksonville team been pretty beat up. They've had some interesting ones though. You're talking about early in November having that crazy win against Buffalo. There, no one expected that. Keeping it close against the Colts team, but then really having kind of three straight pretty solid L's on their side. Not too competitive, I don't think, in any of those games. Maybe Falcons was. I'm not too sure about that one. Tennessee coming off back-to-back tough losses. You lose against the Texans, that's never going to be a good feel. And then they just got absolutely spanked against the Pats. Coming off a bye, though, is the Titans for a team that is been pretty banged up. They will be, I believe, getting back AJ. I don't know about AJ Brown. I think they are getting Julio back, though.
Julio will be back, as far as I've heard. And by heard, I mean read online when I researched it.
Yes.
AJ Brown, I haven't heard anything about one way or the other. He's still a question mark, I think.
This is I think it's a pretty big line. I think that was, obviously 8.5 points, 9 points, what I was first seeing. This Tennessee team has been pretty banged up, and they've been, obviously, when not having Derrick Henry in there, not looking so great. Freeman, though, their backup back, has been doing a bit better. I think in his last game, had a pretty good yards per carry average. Even probably some of those were garbage time yards, though. This Jacksonville team, I thought, given like how they have played some of these games, and I think we both actually picked them to stay within their spread against the Rams. We kind of whiffed on that because they lost by 30.
Was it moi? I believe I had the Rams. Thank you.
Did you have the Rams?
I believe I had the Rams.
Oh, you might have had. Oh, okay, yeah. No, I suppose I just had Jacks. Yeah. Yeah, maybe I just wrote that down mistakenly.
Check the tapes. I had the Rams. 7-6.
7-6. All right. I guess Craig went over 500. Look at that.
Yeah. No, let's just put it to you this way. I don't see me taking the Jaguars again this year. I don't give a shit what the spread is. They're bad. They to me, if I was listing off the worst teams in the NFL, Houston and Jacksonville would have to fight it out for that bottom spot, and Detroit's above both of them. I think Jacksonville is horrendous. And no, they're not going to change that here. The things that Tennessee have had troubles with over the last couple of weeks are things that Jacksonville can't take advantage of. Tennessee's turned over the ball a lot in their last couple of games, right? 9 turnovers in their last 2 games. Yeah. Jacksonville has the worst turnover margin in the NFL, right? Tannehill's thrown 13 interceptions this year, which is as much as his previous 2 years with Tennessee combined. Jacksonville's got 5 INTs as a defense all season. Right? Like, the things that Tennessee has struggled with that have pulled them down, Jacksonville doesn't do. Right? Like, this could easily be a 20-point blowout for Tennessee, even without Derrick Henry. Jacksonville should be thanking their lucky stars they don't have Derrick Henry, or this game would be really out of hand. But Tennessee's going to win this by more than double digits.
Yeah, I got Tennessee myself. I don't see the Jacksonville team being able to do, they might not be turning the ball maybe over as much, but I can't see their offense being too effective, especially what they've shown over those past, the past 4 weeks. It's kind of like, it's the funny thing, the way they won that game against Buffalo 9-6, like literally the least amount of points I think they've scored in the last 5 games. Oddly enough, their only win in that. So it's kind of funny how that worked out. But their offense can't do much of anything. And Tennessee just got a little bit healthier. That's going to, that helps them out tremendously. So you got to feel good about them at home regardless. So, yeah,
As an
Tennessee.
aside, to Jacksonville, benching James Robinson last game, stupid move. Right? That guy's the only dude who's done anything for your offense at any point this year. I don't care that he fumbled the ball in the first quarter. You give the ball back to him. They've had nothing without him. Right? Like James Robinson's been the only bright spot on the team this year. Now you've managed to go and piss him off. Right? Like that was a big thing. I don't know if you'd heard anything about it in the media this week where the Jaguars were like, "Oh no, we didn't bench him. He was dealing with a nagging issue." And Robinson came out and said, "Felt a lot like I was benched." So like, why? Right now you've pissed off the only guy who's played well for you this year. I don't know. It's a mess. Urban Meyer is just. I'm shocked he hasn't left yet. To be honest with you, I'm shocked he hasn't had a medical issue at this point.
Yeah, it's a mess. It's a mess.
I'd love to say that I wasn't reveling in his failure, but listen, Urban Meyer, it's well known he's not a nice person. So I think we can all get some enjoyment out of the fact that Urban Meyer's struggling and looks like a joke as a coach.
It's just one of those things. I think it's funny when you get a coach that has had you have the delights of being a top college coach. It's a bit of a job. There's the whole like recruitment aspect that I understand. It's definitely different. But when you're coming into the NFL and you're not gonna have too many cupcake games. You're not gonna have you're dealing with these are guys when you're talking about the vets on your team, guys that have been as far as their you can't fuck with them. You can't bullshit them like you can with student athletes.
As McAfee would say, the OGs, right? The OGs. You can't. You got to know who the OGs are in the locker room, and you got to show them a certain level of respect, right?
And he fucked around. He did some stupid shit. He got caught for it. He then lied about it, and obviously lied about it. He was getting laughed at by his players. It's like it's amazing that he's still coaching that team right now. Given I can't imagine they have much respect at all for him.
No.
We'll see. I know it's kind of one of those. That's a team that they have been willing to throw money at it, right? The Khan, the owner, he has been willing to, he wants to build up that team, build up the area around that team. He wants to make this a profitable organization for him. He's, I think, pretty underwhelmed with Urban right now, and I would imagine he's going to move on after this season.
I mean, I can't imagine Urban
This
Meyer
season's a
sticks around.
wash. This season's a wash. I think he could take that. He could. It's not even worth it to try to scramble to find somebody right now. Get out with what you can this season, I suppose, is good positioning for a draft pick and call it a season.
Yeah, I don't know. One thing I will say, because you mentioned the college coach thing, I think it's interesting that a lot of the college coaches who have had success moving up don't necessarily come from the traditional power programs, right? They tend to you look at the main example I'll give you is Cliff Kingsbury at Texas Tech, right? Texas Tech traditionally is the third best team in Texas, right, behind Texas and Texas A&M, right?
Yeah.
So it'd be an interesting case study, I think, to look
at. TCU sneaks in there, right?
TCU sneaks in there from time to time.
It could be four. Fucking.
Texas Tech was a program that he had to build up from the ground up.
Yeah.
Right? So you don't get as many of those cupcake games when you're a team like Texas Tech, right? Because you are the cupcake game sometimes, right? When you're a Power 5 school who also sucks, That's the biggest bonus you can get. Alabama's going to be bringing you in every year. Are you kidding me? We get to play a Power 5 school, which is going to boost our overall strength of schedule, and they're bad, right? So when you look at places like that, right, coaches like Cliff Kingsbury, who obviously has come up from Texas Tech, been a huge success at Arizona so far, there's something to be said about building a program up, right? And being able to deal with sucking, right? Because if you're a college coach who takes over in the NFL, probably not taking over a great job, probably not going somewhere where you're going to win right away, right? So you look at Arizona when in Cliff Kingsbury's first year, and yeah, they weren't great, but they showed something, right? There was potential there. Urban Meyer comes from Ohio State. All he did was win all the time, right? He doesn't know how to handle a team who loses. There is something about that where I think if you come from a power program, you don't know how to handle teams that lose.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely a change, and I think that's kind of the thing. Like, it's not as simple as, oh, you get it figured out. I think you have to also, I don't know if I want to say learn how to lose, but like learn how to deal with men in that situation as well. It's like you can't like rah and rally the troops in the same way. I don't know. Suppose if you take a hard loss in the college ranks, and if you're like a continuous loser, we've talked about this in previous weeks. I feel like you'll lose that locker room by this point of the season. Like you're talking about, oh, we got no goddamn chance in the playoffs. Guys are maybe looking at it like, okay, I need to do good for myself because I got to get to my next contract here, and we're not gonna make any fucking national games because we're the goddamn Jacksonville Jaguars, and nobody's gonna want to watch that, right?
No.
So
I will say that's almost why I kind of respect what Dan Campbell's doing in Detroit, right?
Eyes on Detroit. Eyes on Detroit. It's hard not to talk about them.
It's interesting
Right?
because they're in a similar situation as Jacksonville where they suck. There's no talent, right?
They're fun. I don't know, man. It's fucking Detroit. You gotta. They've sucked so much for so many years, and even though other teams have done the same, it's just like I don't know. It's a fun team. It's a fun
They
team to
are,
root for.
and
Basically.
it's hard to explain the
Yeah.
differences, right? Because if you look from the outside, you see 2-10 and 1-10-1, and you go, they are the Office meme, right? Tell me the difference between these pictures. They're the same picture, right? It's not though, right? Detroit, you saw they won the game, and Jared Goff ignored all the players, ran to the sidelines, and hugged Dan Campbell.
Yeah.
Right? They love that guy. They play their ass off for that guy. Jacksonville doesn't give a shit about Urban Meyer. Right? Jackson.
Okay, hold on. I agree with that for the most part. Yeah, the celebration is near the same. There's a little bit of a little rah thing, but not too much. After they get a surprise win. Here's the thing, though. Did you see that shit? How they were celebrating? Detroit was celebrating after that win. Like in the locker room, I think Sheila Ford-Ham or whatever, the owner or whatever, comes down. They're like, "Oh my god, it's so incredible, motherfucker! You got one fucking win. You acting like." Everybody makes the Super Bowl comparison. I mean, for Detroit, it'd be like, okay, if you win your first playoff game after it's been like however many goddamn decades since you won a playoff game, that makes sense. And being happy is fine for it, but the how ecstatic they were for that game, I'll give you a spoiler right now. This game against the Broncos, they are getting smoked. I don't care who the fuck they put a quarterback for the Broncos. Dude.
We got a differing opinion on that one.
They are getting smoked, dude. You can't be that hyped after that win. You could literally, the Vikings just gave you that win based on the defense they played toward the end of that game. That was a fucking like it's great. It's great to get a win. It's great to get a win in your division, but it's not that great. It's your first fucking win. How are you that fired up for it?
Okay,
You're
we'll
only
talk
willing.
about that game when we get there.
You're gonna be so let down as you go through the rest of the season. You're getting your
Because we
ass
have wildly
busted
different opinions on that one.
I don't think you get that up about that win.
That's fair, but at
It's
the
a come
same
behind
time,
win. It's exciting. Yes, you could be pumped up. You could celebrate on the sideline right there. But then to be like popping bottles and shit in the fucking in the back.
to me, that makes me more confident in them. They're leaning into the joke, right? They recognize the joke that's there, right? When a team can look at their situation, right, and not necessarily be happy with it, but not let it destroy them the way it should destroy Detroit right now, I think that speaks a lot, right? They're popping bottles of champagne. I don't think they were doing it seriously. I don't think they're playing "We Are the Champions" in the locker room thinking they won everything, that everything's fixed. They're leaning into the joke, right? To me, that shows a lot of character in that locker room.
It like I said, it's fine to be happy. It's fine to show a little fire there, but like I think there's just something to be said to where you finally get one win. You're and you should and it would be worse. I would say, granted, given that it would be worse if they win that game and there's no energy at all, right? Like that. Yeah. Not saying that's better, but just the reality of the situation.
I get what you're saying.
Is you've played 12 football games this season. You finally won one. It's good to win one, but you got a game next week against a team that is 500 right now, and still, despite your feelings on how good that team is, they are competing for a playoff spot. It's something that you are not. So
no, and I get that.
So you got to understand like who's playing for what. Like, you're playing for the joke win. All right, you got your one good win. I mean, the second one's got to come along then, right? I mean, are you going to be that fired up about the second win? Probably not. Shouldn't be though. But and you're going into the home of a team that still is competing for that. So
yeah, like I said, we'll talk about that when we get to that game. I look at that very differently than you do. Right, I see that as a team.
No, let's go right into it.
Okay, let's jump ahead. I got Detroit. I do have Denver outright, but there's no way Denver's beating Detroit by 10. They might not beat them at all. Listen, what I saw out of that Detroit team in that was very different than what you saw. I didn't see a team that was necessarily, overly happy about winning. I saw a team that likes the situation, right? Not necessarily that they're 0-10-1, but they feel like they have a coaching staff that trusts them, that they have players that they like. There's a good team cohesion there. And to me, when you can look at a season like this and pop champagne bottles when you win your first game and play into the joke, right? That, hey, we're not going to go winless, woo! Right? That's the joke everybody on the outside makes. When you can play into it on the inside, that's a hell of a team mentality. That's great team spirit to be able to look at a bad situation and still find reasons to be happy and to be enjoying yourselves and to go out there in an otherwise impossibly bad situation and find some reason to spin it.
I'm just saying,
I love that.
I don't mind them being happy about getting their first win. That's not necessarily it. It's the extreme amount of it. It's like, all right, yeah, you won the game. You can be happy about that, but it's like I don't know. It's hilarious to me to be like the only reason that so like if they had it's timing wise too, because they've been so bad for this entire, or they've it's not nearly a thing if it's earlier in the season. This is week 5 and they finally pick up a win. It's like, okay, yeah, Detroit, all right, 1-4 or whatever it is, like
Yeah.
different. But it's 13 games of their goddamn season. 12 games, I guess, at that point. What, 1-10-1 now, right? I think is their record. It's just kind of like it's sad because they've had the ability to get those wins prior, right? Those have been right there. I don't know. It's just funny how much it's like, okay, yeah, we'll be that hyped up about our one win. Like it's I just think they're gonna be in for quite a surprise, honestly. Because
I just think I'd feel differently about it if this was a team that was playing well below expectation, right? If this was a team that was supposed to be a 500 team, maybe just slightly below 500,
sure, yeah,
and,
you're
and
right.
they were doing that, I'd feel differently. This is a team that people coming into the season said they might go winless, and it looked like they might go winless for a while.
Yeah,
This is, talent-wise, the worst team in the NFL. They haven't played like it. But talent-wise, on paper, there's no team in the NFL worse than the Detroit Lions. Right? You can go through every team and pick out a few players that you would at least go, there's some quality talent there. Even the Jacksonville Jaguars. They got James Robinson. They got some players on that team that have legitimate talent. Outside of TJ Hawkinson on this Detroit Lions team, who, by the way, hasn't played well this year, mainly because everybody triple covers them and says Jared Goff beat us literally any other way, and he can't. And DeAndre Swift, who is hurt. This team has nothing. Nada. It's empty, barren. And they go out there and they play their asses off. They play hard. They make teams work for wins, right? So when you see that, and then you finally get that win, all that hard work, right? Being talent-wise the worst team in the NFL. All that hard work, you put in all the hard work, and that team stays together the way that Detroit Lions team has, I got a lot of faith in them.
I mean, I don't even know if they're the worst team, honestly.
Oh, they absolutely are.
I mean, that Houston squad's pretty garbo too, but and that Jacksonville squad's pretty garbo too. It's tough. It's tough at the bottom right there. But yeah, I mean, it's. I think this is a team that you have. You have the situation that you've kind of handcuffed yourself into with Goff. And it's good to see him at least get that ball going around a little bit, not looking too bad. I just I worry about the fact that they really like. I don't know. For in my opinion, as much as it is, and it's great they got that first win. It's like I also feel, and maybe this is what kind of puts the sour, like not sour taste, but it's like why I feel like they shouldn't be so happy, so overly happy about this win is that Minnesota literally gave them the win. Like
Yes.
they played as bad a defense as they could have played there at the end, and yeah, they got bit in the ass for it. I guess it's kind of like we take those sort of things, but man, like that's and is this Vikings team not the hardest team to read ever? So week in week out, like what the hell you're gonna get from that team? So
I get what you're saying. I do. I don't think your point is necessarily wrong. And like I said, I think I'd feel really differently about this if this was a team that I expected better from.
yeah,
But this is exactly where I thought Detroit was going to be. I still stand by on paper, like, they don't have a skill player as talented as Brandon Cooks, right? They don't have. Now, DeAndre Swift has come out and played very well this year, but we didn't know that coming into the season. And then he got hurt. That doesn't help either,
yeah,
right? They just don't have anything. It's they were relying on Jared Goff to somehow pull something out of his ass, and Jared Goff's not even that good of a quarterback, right? Like they have a half a team and a prayer,
yeah.
right? And so yeah, I love the fact that there's team cohesion there. right? Unlike in Jacksonville, where they're actively going after their coach or going after each other.
Yeah, true. Yeah, no, I think mentality wise, they're in a better place. It's just like, all right, simmer down. You won one game. Like,
I also think I see it a little bit more as them playing into a joke, whereas you might see it a little bit more literally. Like they were literally that happy to win
well,
that
they're
game.
literally gonna play a game next week, so it's like I understand it's like it was right after the win, but it's like I it's kind of funny. Like, what's your mentality going to that next practice? Like, because they're probably still no, you gotta go right into the next week, right? And you're gonna be going on the road into what's gonna be a tough ass game. I gotta if you have that mentality that you still are like you're putting in all that effort, you gotta get ready for the next game. So when you have like the pop off that they did, it's easy to have the letdown the next game. It's like when we play Rocket League. If we pop off a little too much about a win, we give up a goal within 30 seconds the next game. We're like, ah shit, all right, we're putting our place. So one.
Yeah.
All right, let's make it back. But that's kind of how I feel. It's like they could get popped early on this one. Like if they don't if they're pumped and they're kind of still in that mentality of I'm still hyped after that last win, and they're not prepping and they don't really get ready for this game. It's like that first drive, Denver hits them real quick with something. It's crashing back down to reality for them in the situation that they're in. But obviously, it's awesome that Detroit got their win. We are pretty happy for them. We did pick them. I don't know what 3-4 weeks ago, and we got
The
absolutely
1 week they
skunked in
laid a
that one.
complete egg.
So yeah, we
I
we, we,
will
we
say,
tried.
uh, going off of a little bit of personal experience here, my freshman season in college, um, with Concordia, we were playing, I believe it was SAIT, the Southern Alberta Institute of Technology, and they were the worst team in our division, but had just won or just drawn their first game, just got their first point of the season. Came in, scored 2 goals within 5 minutes, right? There's two ways you can react to that. And sometimes getting pumped and actually getting excited, getting something going, you immediately feel it and it carries you onto the field, right? That could be what happens with Detroit here, right? Detroit could easily, just as easily as you say they could come out and be complacent, they could come out fired up, finally feeling like an NFL team for the first time this year, score 21 within the first quarter.
Well, I mean, they've had those within games though. They've had games where they were that close to winning, and then all of a sudden that other offense is able to just get enough, and they kick a long field goal on them, and that's a huge fucking letdown. That's how that's been going for this Detroit Lions team throughout the year, right? They've been so close. They've played 3.5 quarters of football to where they had put themselves in the ability to win, and it just like they just didn't have quite the thing to get to the end.
It is different when you actually believe you can win, though.
Right.
And I wonder if that belief might have been lacking a little bit, right? When you look at the way they've closed out some games, you wonder if it
Yeah.
was a case of here we go again, right? They have that belief now. They have won. They know they can. This is a team that we've said about it all year. Never bet against them on the spread, right? Because they cover so much. They're like 8-4 against the spread this year. They're like the 5th best team in the NFL against the spread. They do not go away. Now with that belief that they can actually finish games, maybe you get a little bit of something here. I don't like Detroit or Denver at all. I don't. I don't think that Teddy Bridgewater is just not a good quarterback. Right? Like abundantly clear now. Teddy Bridgewater is not that guy. Their defense is good, but they're going to need to put up points at some point. And this Detroit defense has actually been pretty solid.
I mean, Teddy Bridgewater hasn't been any worse than Jared Goff's been over the season.
That's not a compliment.
But I mean, if you're talking about the two quarterbacks like to one another, actually, from a raw stat line, I know obviously there's off games and sometimes stats are padded a little bit, but I mean, you're talking about 230 a game, 16 touchdowns on 7 picks. It's not like a huge, you know, that interception total was doubled, I'd be like, yeah, okay, that's looking pretty bad. Those are Ryan Tannehill numbers, really, at this point. If it was more like that, right? A good run game behind him. Obviously Gordon's had his injury issues. I think he's dinged up this week. I think he's questionable. I want to say, I don't know if he's out right now. Williams been able to step in, Jamal Williams for him. I have brought up Jamal Williams too as being a decently serviceable backup in that situation. They have weapons on that field. Sutton pulled in the most receiving yards, but obviously we've talked about Noah Fant before being a weapon for him. With those backs being able to do some decent. Judy could have moments. Hasn't been very useful this year, unfortunately, for him. We're talking about a Detroit team that also, doesn't have Swift anymore. And despite getting that win and a nice pass and touchdown, nice little response there from Goff. Goff has been a pretty miserable quarterback for the most part for this Detroit Lions team. Looking bad against, the Bears and shit. I mean, the Bears actually aren't that bad on defense regardless. But, yeah, I like the idea, and I hope they do play well. I just think this is like for a team that's they haven't been getting wins. They've had close games, and yeah, against the spread stat is pretty impressive. At the same time, this is the season where nothing makes sense. So yeah, give me Denver to have a nice little bounce back game. Detroit to have the letdown game. The up and downs of this season as they've been doing, just kind of shifting between the two teams again.
No, that's fair.
So we'll go with that. And that's going to be a common theme. We'll go into our next game. We spent way too much on a Detroit game right there.
But, way too much time on the Detroit Denver game.
As actually always happens when you talk about Detroit. They are, as we're kind of talking about, for a team that is as irrelevant as they are to the postseason and those things that we look forward to. They are a team that you can't help but talk about. So they keep themselves, active in that standpoint. But into the next game we have on the slate here, we'll go back here. We got the Raiders, Las Vegas Raiders, going into Kansas City. I brought up this game a little bit prior. The Raiders coming in 6-6, sitting at 500. They've had as much of the up-down season as we talked about before as anybody. Kansas City been kind of riding it high as of late, sitting at 8-4 after an early season slump there. Coming off that, just winning against that Denver team we were just talking about, and the Raiders, as we were talking about that Washington game there. A little bit of a heartbreaker. A game they had actually rallied back nicely. Looked like they were just going to eke out a low point win there. And then, unfortunately, Taylor Heineke stepping up in that 2-minute drill and securing the win for the football team, for the emails. This one, I think I'm going with this whole idea of gut feel on it. This is a Raiders team. Like I said before, they are they play this Chiefs team tough. They like to play a little bit of spoiler to these guys. They have had a very off recent stretch of games there, despite that Thanksgiving Day game. That was a great win for them, but you take a look at their losses, some ugly ones there. Lost against this Kansas City team 41-14 last time they played. That was less than a month ago. That being said, we are going with the theme that nothing makes sense this goddamn season. Everybody's high on the Chiefs. The Chiefs have been looking great as of late. The defense is playing phenomenal. They do have a couple injuries that have dinged them for this next game coming up, as far as their secondary potentially is concerned. -10's a lot of points. I'll take the Raiders against the spread here. I feel like Kansas City still might eke out this game, but I think they just eke it out. I think the Raiders keep them close. So I perhaps would say Kansas City outright, Vegas to keep it within 10.
Starters, rip to the coin. I can't see what the coin picked to determine.
Oh no, the coin. I love
the coin had its first prediction wrong last week with Vegas losing to Washington. That was the first time the coin has been wrong about Vegas this year.
Yeah.
I agree with everything you just said. Um, I know the Raiders got blown out about a month ago by the Chiefs. You can take that game and kind of put it off to the side. There's a lot of things happening in Raiderland at that time that went beyond the football field,
Sure.
and that game they were never gonna ever be competitive. Um, in their last 6 games, the only time the Chiefs have scored more than 23 points was that game against the Raiders. This is not the Chiefs team we thought we knew coming into the season from last year. They don't score a lot. Shockingly, their defense has stepped up and played really well. Nobody would have thought that. To win by 10, if they can only score 23, you're telling me you think Las Vegas is only going to get 13 points. Don't see that. This Vegas team, they're not the most consistent team in the world, but there's too many weapons out there for me to think that KC can win this game 20-10 or something stupid like that. KC will win, but it's going to be 23-20, 20-17,
It's
something like that.
it's interesting, man. You take a look at their last five. You have the Dallas game, and that's the outlier. They put up 36 points in a win
Yeah.
right there. Otherwise, you talk about 4 losses in which they put up 15 points, 13 points, 14 points, and 16 points. So they are that team that could just put up right there in the teens. But you're talking about an offensive side that could maybe go into the low 20s. So it's right there, right? It's
All
so
those
close.
numbers would cover 10,
It's very, yeah, exactly. You
right?
talk about like averages, that sort of thing, but it's very close. It's kind of
Yeah.
goes to show that it's
No, absolutely. I'm not saying Vegas is going to go in here and put up 40,
no.
but I can reliably expect them to put up 10, and that'll probably be enough given Kansas City's trends to cover 10 points.
Interesting that we, yeah. I mean, like I was seeing it as a, yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's one of those things that it's really tough to. You start to take a look at those injuries too. Like Darren Waller looks like it's going to be out for another week. Um,
The rough one.
that's a rough one. And the Seab being on the other side of Max Crosby there, as far as their pass rush is concerned, is going to be a bit of a hit. Kiwakowski, their middle linebacker, I think finally getting designated for IR, it looks like, and Kenyon Drake, who
Kenyon Drake was placed on injured reserve.
a damn shame because I think a weapon, someone we've brought up before, is you would like to actually see him get more touches and stuff within that offense. But yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see the offense that they decide to roll out with. I would say Derek Carr might be having a field day with this team. If we were talking early season Chiefs defense. Then obviously you've had this stretch where the Chiefs defense has really stepped up, but they do have some injuries right now in that secondary. So they might be a little bit more subject to what they were looking like early in the season there, as far as their defense concerned. Carr actually might be able to have some success here, despite not having probably his main target in Waller there. Although Hunter Renfrow has really stepped up. As far as being an option.
I will say, interesting Hunter Renfrow note. He's had 100 plus yards in his last 2 games. Has never in his career had 3 straight games with 100 plus receiving yards.
All right.
So, yeah, Hunter Renfrow is a guy that I've always been big on, but he's got to start showing that consistency at some point if he really wants to be a number one guy, like I think Las Vegas thinks he can be. He's got to start doing that on a consistent basis, and this could be his chance. Right, this is a big game for Las Vegas. If Hunter Renfrow shows out the way he has the last couple weeks, right, we might see the blossoming of a true number one receiver in Vegas, right? And you put him on the outside with Darren Waller running routes as your tight end, and now all of a sudden that offense is starting to look pretty scary, right? But this is a game where if Vegas wants to win it, Hunter Renfrow needs to show out the way he has the last couple weeks, right? He can't do what he's done in the past and start to go a little bit invisible when he starts to have streaks like this.
Yeah. It's the whole thing that happened, with Ruggs, obviously, like that was craziness for him, and if the whole situation, obviously, that being terrible. But if you're talking just as far as football sense, what they are able to work with when he was in the offense and how they had just that verticality game to it. Obviously, that's kind of been lost, but Hunter Renfrow being able to step up as far as that slot position, their offense has definitely had to mold a little bit to that. I just am surprised of how little they utilize their running game, considering their weapons there. I figured that would have been a lot more featured. You have a guy like Jacobs there, and it only, the classic. You start to utilize it to get that running game going. It only helps out Derek Carr in that passing game. Only opens up things in the middle for a guy like Hunter Renfrow. If you got that stuff going, this offense has the ability to be dynamic, I feel, and should be putting a lot more than 14 points in those losses that they've had recently. So I'm interested to see, if there is an adjustment offensively that starts to utilize that a little bit more for them, because I don't think they could just kind of, especially with Waller out, they just don't have enough verticality in that passing game to really be able to put up points like they need to. They kick field goals.
You'd hope Deshaun Jackson can fill that as much as possible until you get Waller back, but he is who he is at this point, right? Like, he's still got some athleticism, he's still got some burners, but he's not the same guy he was heyday in Philadelphia.
See, we'll kick it over to the next game here. This one, just a team that's been just in a really bad way for maybe more recent streak of games against a team that's just been bad in general, but does have some surprising wins over the season. We're talking about the New Orleans Saints coming in at 5-7 into New York to face off against the Jets, sitting at 3-9. New Orleans getting 5.5 points here coming in, or getting minus 5.5 points coming in. The experiment, I suppose, with Taysom Hill, I'm not too sure where that's sitting right now. Where they're sitting supposed to start. Hopefully that finger is able to hold up for them, for him, I should say. This is a New Orleans Saints team, though, that has been going on quite the losing streak. They have lost pretty decisively, I would say, outside of, I suppose just the last 3 weeks there. They had some close ones earlier against the Titans in Atlanta that they had dropped. This Jets team, I mean, they've been looking pretty bad throughout the season. Did pick up a win recently against the Texans, though. The Jets, I would say, are, they have played a little bit of a spoiler. They have picked up a few wins this season. You're talking about good old Zach, though. Zach Will. I know how you feel about Zach Will. I think
it's not even how I feel about Zach Wilson. It's about how I feel the Jets as an organization has absolutely hamstrung him, right? Like, here, we're going to give you no wide receivers, a shit offensive line, and no running game. Enjoy. Like, what's the kid supposed to do? I like Zach Wilson. I thought he was a good college quarterback. I think there's potential there. He's gonna get friggin' Sam Darnolded in New York. You can make a whole list of quarterbacks like that, though. He's gonna get Mark Sanchez in New York. He's gonna, this is the Jets' MO. Draft an exciting young quarterback, give him no help, watch him fail.
Exactly. That'll be for a couple years till that rookie contract goes out, or maybe even sooner. Maybe you just get rid of him even sooner than that. So you move on to the next guy, because you'll probably have a draft pick that'll get you your next guy, and they'll be suffering. It's a damn shame. my boy Bob Sala just hooray, this is head coaching. I mean, obviously, you're not going to get head coaching positions unless it's typically for a team that's
Yeah.
bad. The Jets are just that special kind of bad, though, to where it's kind of funny. I mean, they have 3 wins. They have more wins than some of these other teams we're talking about as far as the worst teams in the league. But it just feels
Feels
so much
worse,
crapper.
right?
Yeah, it just feels so much. It does. And you got, you got some guys like Elijah Moore, I guess, that have like shown flashes, but never
Hey,
anything consistently, right? So
Corey Davis has had a pretty decent season.
I suppose so.
What's that?
Right.
He's done for the year now?
Yeah.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah.
I
Exactly.
don't know, man. The- It's just I mentioned this a couple weeks ago with Detroit and why I like Dan Campbell as a fit for Detroit and talking about how like to become a good team from being like that traditionally awful team, you need to make some kind of systemic change first, right? It needs to become a place where people actually look like they enjoy playing in, right? And once you get that, then you can start to add talent, right? The system needs to change and the atmosphere around the team needs to change before you can start to win again.
Yeah.
Detroit looks like they're starting to get there, right? The players are having fun. They got a coach who seems to be having fun. Now you can start to bring in talent. The Jets don't. The Jets are in the complete opposite place. Everybody looks miserable going out on the field every week. They know they're gonna lose. Even when they don't lose, they look like they should lose.
So you're taking
It's
the Jets, I take it.
oh yeah, 100%. No, I think I have it written in here. Taysom Hill stinks, but he's better than the Jets. I Alvin Kamara's back too. Enjoy dealing with that, New York. Uh,
Yeah.
I don't know. Only five. You're only giving me 5.5 to take any team against the Jets. Sure, I'll take New Orleans.
I mean, I honestly don't like it myself. I think the spread is actually a tough one when I saw it, just because this New Orleans team, when it's not Jameis Winston back there, they have been
Yes,
lost. And
yes,
Taysom,
100% agree.
obviously, um, we talked about what his abilities are when you're just talking about what kind of reads he can make, how you're able to utilize them in a full game scenario, over the entirety of like multiple series throughout a game versus the what they had used him for, which was kind of like gadget plays, that sort of things,
Mhm.
things that you just kind of plugged and played throughout a game, but it wasn't the core of what you're running. And now that that's been the case, obviously that's shown to be pretty pretty rough. And now you've added an injury to it. Uh, that being said, uh, probably more confidence that that offense goes a little bit better than it does under Simeon. Um, and this New York Jets team, like, yeah, they've played some spoiler, but they're they haven't looked very good at all as of late. I would argue, even though they do have that win, you're talking about a win against Houston, who I think is actually the worst team in the league right now. Um, I got to think that, yeah, New Orleans 5.5. I really don't like the points on that because I don't think this is going to be a really clean win at all by the Saints. But I have more of a feeling that they'll win by at least a touchdown than I do that the Jets will keep this close. So I gotta go New Orleans, I suppose.
The Jets are an NFL worst 3-9 against the spread this year. They either win or they get blown out.
Which is surprising because they actually they played Miami a few weeks ago, fairly close, within a touchdown, that sort of thing.
Yeah, but that was back before Miami had
Miami got
really
hot. Yeah, exactly.
got right.
The
Like
the belief.
you look at like the Patriots' 2 wins in those first 6 weeks we were talking about were demolition jobs of the Jets, right? Like the Sam Darnold Panthers. The reason why we started to think that Sam Darnold might actually be is because they beat the Jets,
Yeah.
right? Like
Oh,
they're
it was
bad.
the Jets. It wasn't. It wasn't Darnold. Darnold could be. He could sling it. Oh shit.
Like
Oh
they're
man.
bad. There's just something wrong with that team, and they need to get a season where they can just get players enjoying playing football again. It'll probably suck. You'll probably lose a bunch, but you're doing that anyways. Get somebody in there who can get some life into that team, right? And I'm not necessarily saying coach, right? I'm not necessarily saying you have to fire Robert Saleh to do it. Maybe like a general manager who brings some spice, right? Maybe some coordinators who try some new things that you don't, right? Maybe bring up like a hotshot college coordinator who's running a system in college that might be a little bit different to the NFL. Bring something that brings some life to the team, because right now there's nothing, right? It's a barren wasteland of sadness. They need something that brings life.
I mean, yeah, they are not in a good way. Probably you can't really point to anything to where you're thinking, oh, this team's moving in the right direction. I would have said that Bob Saul as a head coach would be that potentially for you, but the way that things are run nowadays in the NFL, how long a leash you got? Do you really? How much
Uh,
does good faith on your players? This is what we were talking about. We've talked about in previous weeks with Dan Campbell. It's like
yeah,
you could be all fired up and gung ho and shit like that, but that's only gonna work so long when you're losing continuously.
yeah.
Um, we'll see. We'll see. I think obviously you're talking about a. Everybody kind of knew this is how it was going to go this first year,
Yeah.
right? This is no surprise. So
No.
it'll be interesting if they're able to.
You'd just like to see some more fight, right? Like
Yeah.
that's the thing with the Jets, right? Like the reason why we spend so much time talking about the Lions is because they're actually interesting. They fight. They ain't out of any game. They're gonna find new and creative ways to shoot themselves in the foot. Sure, teams without talent do that all the time. But they find there's a passion there, right? There's something there that intrinsically keeps them fighting in games. The Jets don't fight. They lay over and die a lot. They had 1 week where the world got fun and Mike White became a thing,
Yes, that was fun. That was a fun week.
and that was it,
Yeah.
right? It's just been sadness and loss since then. Mike White turned out to not be the guy that we hoped he was,
Yeah.
right? The meme could not live, and there's been nothing like there's nothing.
Well,
It's sad.
I think it's yeah. Like I said, I think this is something to where we kind of knew this season
Yeah.
a wash for this Jets team. Some you could hopefully you build off of. You know, this is going to be another season for some of these younger guys under their belts. I think there are some players on there that they will be on that team hopefully for the next upcoming seasons if they are able to find someone serviceable for a quarterback. They're able to maybe get themselves a little bit better inside the trenches to give those guys a little bit more time, the ability to actually stop somebody for once. Um, you got to put those pieces together. It's going to take some time. I hope Salah gets the opportunity to do so because you're not going to probably do much better with somebody else just jumping into
No.
this, right? So,
No, unless there's that college coach that you feel confident can make the step up like Cliff Kingsbury did,
yes.
right? You're not gonna like no NFL coach in their right mind's gonna take this job.
Yeah. If you don't mind, give me just a second. I'm going to run grab a drink real quick
Yeah,
while
for
we
sure.
go to the next game. Next game we got
For
looking into, and actually, I'm very interested in this one because this is probably just you're talking about some of these divisions being pretty tight, and you have when you kind of brought up earlier the fact that these division leaders haven't been as dominant, and all of a sudden you got some teams creeping up. We got the Dallas Cowboys going into Washington to face the emails. Dallas sitting at 8-4 at the top of that NFC East, but Washington has been creeping up, has evened themselves up to 500 in that division. Dallas actually coming in, and they're getting 4.5. So Washington getting plus 4.5 there at home. I will be right back, grab a drink real quick, and we will break down what we think about this game.
Yeah. Dallas, Washington, it's going to be a fun one. It's going to be a fun one. I'll explain this in more detail when Tap gets back so we can talk about it. I still like Dallas. And I probably shouldn't. There's a lot of reasons why I shouldn't. Yeah. I still think I like Dallas this week. I was just saying, like, I was gonna explain it more when you got back.
Yes.
There's a lot of reasons why I shouldn't like Dallas this week. Not the least of which being Micah Parsons and Tony Pollard potentially being out would be unbelievably big losses. And like I said, Washington getting J.D. McKissic back will only help that running game, which Antonio Gibson has already done phenomenally with. If you can get another weapon in that running game, there's just... I still, in the grand scheme of things, don't trust Taylor Heineke to win the big game. And this is a big game, right? This is season defining potentially for both teams. Dallas has been terribly inconsistent at times this season.
Yeah.
Right? That dud of a game they threw up against Denver is the first one that comes to mind, but obviously Thanksgiving against Las Vegas too, which was a fun game, don't get me wrong, but you still lost it. And now they come into a game with a surging Washington team. Everything seems to point to Washington winning this, but I look at that Dallas team and there's just too much talent, right? There's too much talent for me to think that this Washington offense can do enough to keep up with that Dallas offense, even though the Washington defense has been very good recently. There's just too much talent. I can't... Like, my gut reaction was Dallas, and I gotta go with it on this one. You got Dak, you got Ezekiel Elliott, you got freaking 4 different wide receivers who could be in the top 2 of most teams. It's hard to go against this team right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, going against the, the current trend. Dallas has been a team that's, they've had a couple rough losses here within their last 5. You're talking about, that Denver loss was a shock to everybody. That was kind of the beginning of it. Come out and then all of a sudden, spank the Falcons. But then, yeah, you expect quite a bit more than what they gave against KC right there. That crazy game against the Raiders there. But still put up, a lot of points. But it was surprising how much, obviously, that defense gives up. And then New Orleans, that's almost just based on where New Orleans is at. That's almost... You kind of ignore that game, I think, a little bit more as far as being like a real, statement win. So their 2 wins haven't been nice wins against good teams, right? They've been wins against teams that, you could put up 27 and 43 against Atlanta and New Orleans, but when you've been put up to anything that it's like 500 competition lately, you've been putting up L's. And this Washington team has been doing the opposite. I mean, granted, Seattle is a team that they should beat a little bit more handedly, I think, than 17-15.
Probably.
As much fight as Seattle has shown, I guess, in the last couple weeks, though. But yeah, you talk about a team that was able to take a game, a very impressive win against Tampa Bay as far as sealing that, doing what they need to against in conference opponent as far as Carolina, and one of those teams they're going to be fighting for potentially down the line for a playoff spot there. So a real strong win for them. But then these back-to-back wins against the Raiders and the Seahawks, 17-15 right now. I don't see how they're going to be able to have the same kind of offensive output that they've had as of recent and be able to beat this Dallas team like you're talking about with so many
Yeah,
weapons.
it's just too much talent.
This is the exact game to where it's like what you would feel like if there was one thing, if you were to lean something, and as far as we talk about nothing making sense in this season, um, it would make sense that in a situation like this, Dallas would come out and show why they were top of this division and kind of put their foot down on it. And you know, it's not really a knock on what Washington's able to do. It's just I just don't think they are. You talk about if they get this win here, you talk about them as the class of the NFC East, probably, right? And I
Yeah.
just don't think they're quite there yet as far as the overall talent level. And we've seen a I'm surprised about the Pollard news. That kind of has made me think a little bit about this because I'm thinking Zeke's been struggling a little bit. I'm loving the production that you're getting out of a guy like Pollard, though. Um, so that was a little surprising. I did not see that on the injury report, but
He tore his plantar fascia on his left foot.
oh
Uh,
god, oh
he right now says he thinks he's a game time decision, but
that shit hurt like hell, dude. Are you kidding? That sucks.
yeah,
Yeah,
and especially for a running back, I can't imagine even if he plays, he's gonna be anywhere near,
yeah.
the guy
Depends,
that
I
you
guess.
expect him to be.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we'll see. I guess with that. But yeah, I'm kind of in the camp that I saw this game and I'm like, this is just the kind of game Dallas should come out here and on the road, kind of be able to put their stamp on it and end on this division as well. So I'm going Dallas on that.
I will say the one place where Washington might have a really distinct advantage over Dallas that could make a difference in this game is coaching, right? This Dallas team has been hamstrung by Mike McCarthy this year, right? His play calling has been sporadic, would be the nicest way I could put it,
Yeah.
right? Like it's been bad. His play calling's been bad this year, and everybody said it coming in, right, when they hired Mike McCarthy. Yeah, he's a name, but he was carried by great quarterbacks for years, right? And he's not a guy who necessarily calls a great game. Whereas on the other side, Ron Rivera has done a great job of for years making something out of nothing with teams, right? Like he finds a way to get a little extra juice out of teams that don't necessarily have that much. He knows what this team does well and what it doesn't do well, and he plays to those strengths. That could be a place where Washington has a real distinct advantage in this matchup and where it could make a large difference over the course of this game.
Yeah, I mean it's a good point. Yeah, McCarthy he has shown a strange some strange strategy when it comes to the clock management aspect of the game. And if there's one thing that Washington does do incredibly well, it's actually would be like clock management and utilizing their strengths as far as run the clock down, time of possession. I always seem to bring up one team for about their time of possession
Oh, I got a time of possession
ability.
set for you later.
And that's Washington right there. One of the best in the league of being able to do it. So it's kind of interesting. Yeah, a guy like Antonio Gibson, if he's gonna be still doing work for them in the backfield there. Heineke, this is a pretty opportunistic defense as far as the Cowboys are concerned. So if he's able to keep them safe as in regards to that, not make any silly errors there, and give some short fields or some pick sixes or whatever to Dallas, who has been some uncharacteristic, what you wouldn't think, the losses they have had, they've lost them with some pretty lackluster offense as well. So outside of that Raiders game, so that's that'll be the one thing to look out for. I perhaps if ball control early and able to just kind of drive down Dallas's throat. Their defense has been banged up a bit, so you think as far as depth is concerned for Dallas, they're going to be struggling. Yeah, it could be interesting for Washington there, but I just feel like too strong offensively, and they got the tools to be able to do it.
No, 100% agree.
Let's see here as we go in to the next one on the slate. It's Craig's Atlanta Falcons, 5-7.
I told you exactly how that Bucs game was gonna go last week. I told you down to a T.
Yeah,
it's gonna be close for 3 quarters. They're gonna be right in it. They're gonna be mingling, and then bang.
yeah. That was I'm trying to ride with your Falcons team here, man, and I'm getting bit in the ass for it on these on these picks. But 5-7 Atlanta Falcons going into the 5-7 Carolina Panthers, the 5-7s of the NFC South. We were just talking about New Orleans a couple games ago as well. Another 5-7 NFC South team. Carolina getting -2.5 here at home. And this is probably one of those lines where it's just like, all right, well, Carolina's at home, therefore they get the 2.5.
They get the points.
I have to say that I really actually thought, I don't know, maybe it was fool's gold, and maybe it's not as drastic as it seems, but obviously Cam had just that was a horrific game against the Dolphins, and
Listen, I love Cam as much as the next guy, but he's got no shoulder.
I wanted to believe though. It's like he was back, dude. He was fired up. Obviously, he takes down the Cardinals in a pretty impressive game, and obviously all the things you can say about where they were injured and that going to that game, of course. But things still being the case, goes in, handles business pretty well for the limited plays that he was in. Obviously, he wasn't even the quarterback for most of that game. I think he was in there for 10 plays or something like that.
Barely. And most of them were runs.
And I guess that was just kind of it. It was like everybody was like, and I was fired up. I'm like, yeah, Cam's back. Fuck yeah, let's go. And I would love to see this. A good Cam Newton is nothing but good for the NFL as far
absolutely.
As watching football, right? It's
prime
fun.
Cam Newton is what the NFL wishes Lamar Jackson was.
Right.
Right.
And I think what everybody kind of feels like. I think times has shown can be, but it's definitely not at the It's not consistent.
But it's not what he is, right?
No.
Not now. Lamar Jackson is not prime Cam Newton, who broke the game at times, right? Like he could, he was that guy who would run an RPO, right? Bust off a 20-yard run on his own, and then next play throw for 50, right? Like he was a cheat code. He's got no shoulder, right? Like that shoulder is so far beyond fucked. He can't throw anymore, right? And I hate it because I'm with you, man. Prime Cam Newton was showtime, man. Those early to mid 2010s Carolina teams were awesome to watch. But we're at a reality now where that's not who Cam Newton is. Right? Yeah. And against an Atlanta defense that is okay, not exceptional, but they're certainly not going to cost your team a game. I don't think Cam Newton can do enough, especially no Christian McCaffrey. Right? The CMC running factory's been shut down.
Yeah.
Right? So they're running out Chuba Hubbard, who's been good. Shout out Sherwood Park, Alberta. Worked with a classmate of his.
Oh. Fun fact.
Yeah. Apparently he's a dick, but
all right, funner fact.
I don't know the guy, so this is secondhand knowledge, but I worked with a classmate of his and apparently wasn't the greatest guy to be around. Um, listen, I they fired Joe Brady, right? Brought in Jeff Nixon to run the plays, who's a very run-oriented play caller. Jeff Nixon loves calling run plays. I don't I don't think it's enough, right? At some point you got to gain some yards through the air, and I don't think Cam Newton can consistently do that anymore. Atlanta's 4-1 against the spread in their last 5 road games. They like getting away from Atlanta for some reason. I don't know what it is, but they play better on the road. I got Atlanta in this one. Maybe it's my fandom talking, but I just I don't see Carolina winning much more this year, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of a shame because we were seeing this Carolina team, especially at parts in the early part of the season, um, when you got Darnold firing off, and even after he was falling off a bit, and they were having to deal with PJ Moore and stuff like that. That defense still looking damn good, right?
Oh, it's a great defense.
But at this point, it's like your offense is so depleted that you're only going to be able to hold that for so long. Um, I think upon seeing this one right off the bat, I saw that it was pretty close as far as the points were concerned. I feel like this is a bit of a pick'em game regardless, so I'm not surprised that the points were this close. And then, yeah, the fact that Carolina is getting it due to home, not surprising. I think, yeah, I trust Atlanta to go out there and kind of at least be able to manage. Again, we're talking about Cordell Patterson coming back. Second week back, hopefully, will just be a little bit stronger than was last week there. So I'm thinking this offense is going to be able to do just fine against this Carolina team. It might be a war of attrition a little bit. It might be not so much at first, and then they'll eventually wear him down and get some points there. And, yeah, I don't trust this Carolina team to be able to put up points. So, yeah, definitely give me the Falcons on this one.
Yeah, I will say another potential X factor is Hayden Hurst coming back off of IR. Hayden Hurst isn't always the biggest in terms of the passing game, but with the way that they like to use Cordell Patterson, Hayden Hurst's blocking ability, get a true big blocking tight end out there for him, that could be a way to really open up some plays for Cordell Patterson. I don't know how many stamps he'll be able to play just coming off of IR, right? So I don't know if they're going to limit him or not. But that's a big addition to this team as far as getting another good blocker out there, right? Because Kyle Pitts, as much as I love him, he's a fantastic tight end as far as receiving goes. He's not much of a blocker, right? He's long and lanky, right? It doesn't usually do you well in the blocking game. You bring in Hayden Hurst, who's just a box of a man. He's gonna open up some holes for you. So I think that could be another potential thing to look out for. Is getting Hayden Hurst back is gonna be a big thing for Atlanta. I'm with you. This isn't gonna be a fun game to watch. I think if you're neutral, right? I don't think this is gonna be a 30-27 kind of slugfest kind of. It's gonna be 2017, 17-15 kind of thing. It's going to be a dogfight. You got two decent defenses and two offenses that have not been particularly great recently. I just think Atlanta's got a little bit more in the tank there.
I think fair enough there. All right. We'll go on to this next one. I'm not happy about it because this might be the worst game of the week right here. And this one, I've actually gone back. This is the only one. I said I was going with my gut throughout this, throughout my picks here, and I have. This is the only one I have flip-flopped back on because of some information I also just got or just saw recently. Question or game in question here is the Seattle Seahawks. 4-8 Seattle Seahawks are going in to face the 2-10 Houston Texans. Seattle coming in -8.5. coming in off a win against my Niners. A nice 30-point game for that team there. Offense clicking a little bit more. Texans just getting shut out against the Colts. Big thing in this one, found out recently, take a look at the news here, is that the Houston Texans are going to be rolling with Davis Mills as their quarterback. They are going with that for the rest of the regular season, going away from Tyrod. So that's what flipped this for me, because I think Seattle absolutely fucking stinks. They actually have also just lost Jamal Adams, I believe, for the rest of the year.
They have.
So a big part of their defense, just a team that really, like, they definitely got a nice win against division rival there, playing spoiler to the Niners, fucking with their playoff chances. So I know, that was a big one. Pete Carroll all fired up on the sidelines after that one for the Seahawks. I still really don't like their team at all. 8.5 is a huge spread, but that's while Tyrod Taylor, I thought, was going to be the quarterback for this game. I had Houston the entire way until I read that about 20 minutes ago or so. Davis Mills is going to be the quarterback. Therefore, I have to go Seattle, because there is no fucking way I am taking any spread. Is it David or Davis?
Davis.
Davis.
Davis Mills.
Davis fucking Mills. I hate to do it, but there's no way I could take him. So I got to go Seattle, even with that gigantic spread on the road, being able to put up probably double digits against this Houston team. I don't see how Houston, as bad as Seattle is, we're talking about college teams that are out there right now, and that's what Houston kind of feels like in a lot of regard. I thought Tyrod was their absolute best chance for winning games. I'm very surprised they went this way with it, so we'll see.
Imagine not being able to be an outright starter at Stanford University, coming to the NFL and being the starter of an NFL team. What a career path for Davis Mills, huh?
Right.
Like, the guy was a guy who split time at Stanford. The Pac-12 team that everybody's like, hey, they're smart. Right. Yeah, Davis Mills stinks. I told you I had a time of possession stat for you.
Here we go. Yes.
I know you loves you a good time of possession stat.
And I'm about to probably hate this one, I feel.
Both these teams are in the bottom 3 of time of possession numbers this year.
Yeah.
But in particular, the Seattle Seahawks are on pace to become only the second team in the last 45 seasons to average fewer than 25 minutes of possession a game.
Yeah.
The only other team doing that being the expansion 1999 Cleveland Browns.
Although, in their last game, they absolutely killed the Niners in time of possession, and that's a large part of why we lost that game.
I'm definitely taking Seattle. You know me and Davis Mills. I think he's horrendous.
I so don't want to take the Seahawks. Like, I hate this. I hate this. Why did they do this? Why did they decide to go run from Tyrod Taylor?
If
then I could have picked
Tyrod
Houston.
was playing, this would be more interesting. Davis Mills is good for 14 points for the other team, guaranteed. Like, off the bat, you can guarantee he's going to throw 2 picks in his own half that's going to lead to touchdowns for the other team. Might throw them as touchdowns. He's done that 3 times already this year. He's not... Like, I get that he's a rookie, and when you're a bad team, you want to see what you got for the future. I promise you, Houston, Davis Mills isn't your guy. I promise.
Yeah, I don't know how they'll come out after putting up no points against the Colts. And, I mean, you're talking about the game before that, only getting 14 against the Jets. Yeah, I don't see their offense, even against a pretty garbage defense. Even you would say, as far as total yards per game, worse than the Texans' defense. But they don't give up points.
I was gonna
So
say, Seattle's defense is actually sixth in the NFL in points per game against, only 20.8.
yeah,
Right? So yeah, their defense
which is a weird stat. Like it's amazing that it's that
they
bend don't
they
break
give
on
up
that one, but it is.
tons of yards, but they don't give up points.
Yeah. Um, so we'll see. We'll see as far as like what I'm interested in a guy like what could still happen for Tyrod Taylor because I don't know. I still think that's a better option at quarterback than some of the other guys we're seeing out there.
I
So who
can, yeah,
knows?
I can
But
at least tell you that I've seen Tyrod Taylor do good things for teams, which is more than I can say for Davis Mills, Zach Wilson, uh, Jared Goff. Although I know Jared Goff went to a Super Bowl, so I know that sounds unfair, but that Rams team was all defense, right?
yeah.
That Rams defense was disgusting. Jared Goff had all of the weapons in the world and still couldn't put up more than like 20 points a game. Um, yeah, I don't know. I trust Tyrod more than anybody I named there,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Certainly, if you need a quality backup, right? You look at what New Orleans has been rolling out with Trevor Siemian and Taysom Hill. Surely Tyrod gives you a little bit more, right? Like, I know he struggled in Houston, but it's Houston. It's like I was mentioning about New York with that giant pit of sadness and despair that is the Jets. The Texans are lateral to it, right? It's the same festering pit.
Oh man.
That's the two pictures, by the way. That's the Office meme with the two pictures. What are they're the same picture.
Rough. Rough. But yeah, I mean, Houston. I mean, their shit was going on before the season even started. Obviously.
Oh yeah, with the Deshaun Watson stuff.
I mean, yeah, it was a mess there. Um, their ownership is all sorts of yeah sideways. So
And
they were kind of screwed from the get. But it's
okay, I don't know if you've heard this or not, but you were talking about Houston ownership. This to me is like the peak of stupidity of the Houston ownership. You know they had a trade in place for Deshaun Watson at the deadline, eh? No guarantees of playtime or anything. Straight up from Miami, a second and a fourth for Deshaun Watson. No guarantees of anything. He wouldn't have to. Oh, and Tua was in that. Tua was in that trade too. Is
right.
Tua a second and a fourth? They wouldn't have to give any guarantee that Deshaun Watson's legal troubles were settled. They wouldn't do it because they wanted at least two firsts.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of remember hearing something about that.
You idiots.
Well, yeah.
What?
I mean, I think it's kind of sketchy. I don't even know how. I mean, I suppose just trade contract, but like while the legal issues are going on, I would be surprised if they even had like the real capability of being able to do that. Like while you are being investigated for crime, being able to enter into contracts. I actually is thinking about like business and contract law, something that I studied.
Yeah,
I'm trying to think about that actually.
but it's a
How
pre-existing contract, so I think it's different, right? I don't think he'd be able to sign a new contract well under a legal investigation, but I think because it's a pre-existing contract, the owner of said contract would be allowed to move the contract on.
yeah. Yeah, but yeah, I don't know how justified. Anyways, that would be under yeah, being able to even transfer ownership or transfer the obligation of one of the parties. It's
Yeah.
hmm.
But yeah, no, Houston's a mess and a
But yeah,
joke. And
so but the thing is, it's like that situation is going to take a while to play out. So I'm surprised they didn't. Yeah, I mean, the one thing it would do for Houston, be able to just wipe their hands clean of the situation if they
that
were
was
able to
my
do it.
thought, right?
That's it,
Like
exactly. It's not a distraction for you anymore.
at this point, I would take literally anything to get him away from my team,
Yeah.
just to wash my hands of the situation. Because I know there was a lot of conspiracy theorists out there when the rumors first started happening. There's like 37 accounts against him right now, or some ridiculous number like that.
Yeah.
There's too much smoke there to not be some kind of a fire. Just get rid of it. Be done with it. Right? I don't know. It's a bad situation, and you had a chance to wash your hands of it, get a clean slate, even if it wasn't what you wanted for him, and it's not nearly the evaluation of the talent, right? You're not even close to fair talent-wise in that trade, but that's the furthest thing from the issue right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Houston will be it's probably going to be a mess as far as competitive football team wise for a bit. But yeah, that's a whole other situation. Who knows what we're talking about how that all shook down,
Yeah.
like a year from now, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, let's go into the next one. Let's see. We already took care of Detroit, Denver, jumped ahead into that game, and we got our split in that one, actually. Mark that down as one of our split games there. After that, though, another giant spread. Another one of these double-digit spreads right here. We got...
Pardon the pun on that one?
Yeah.
Giant spread?
Giant spread. The New York Giants spreads against the LA can't make a Chargers. Because this LA team is so goddamn inconsistent, so they can't make a charge.
Yeah, and they're also very much having the COVID issues. I don't know if you've heard about that, but they're going to be without Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and Chris Harris Jr. all dealing with the COVID.
Wow, that's oof. And for a team that has really been not great in some of the offensive categories for some of their games, that's rough. That's gonna be rough for them.
It's a big amount of receiving yards lost there, and then Chris Harris, obviously a cornerback for them, who is, if not their number one corner, their number two. He's been doing a lot of good work on the defensive side for them this year, and all big losses. Being said, the Giants will be starting either Mike Glennon or Jake from State Farm. So...
Yeah, Chargers -10 here at home. That's the points they're getting. Giants 4-8 on the season. Chargers 7-5. But Chargers, they have been that's the most disappointing 7-5 team you ever goddamn did see, I suppose. But coming off a nice W against the Bengals, right?
If you had told me at the start of the year the Chargers would go 11-5, I'd be like, I think they'd be a little bit disappointed with that. I think they thought they might push a little bit further on, right? If you told me now that they'd go 11-5, I'd laugh in your face. This is I don't know what they are, right? They're
17 games. Weirdest... Remember, you got. Is it 12-5 or is it 11-6?
Oh, yeah, no, 11-6.
11-6.
Forgot the 17 game thing. Yeah, no. If they would have gone, if you would have told me at the start of the year they'll go 11-6, I'd be like, okay, they're a few games back of the Chiefs. I think they'd be a little bit disappointed with that. Right. If I gave the Chargers 11-6 right now, they'd bite my hand off. There ain't no way they're getting to 11-6.
That being said, are you feeling the Giants on this one? Are you feeling Jake from State Farm?
Jake from State Farm or Mike Glennon?
Are you feeling them? I mean, -10. This is a giant spread.
Putting the fear of God into the Chargers. The Giants have 3 massive game time decisions that honestly frustrate the hell out of me, because that would sway my pick one way or the other if I knew if Kadarius Toney, Sterling Shepard, and Saquon Barkley were playing or not. And they're all game time decisions. And I hate that.
I'm seeing Toney as out with an oblique.
Kadarius Toney they have as out? Okay, that does help a little bit.
So that's one of your 3 guaranteed. But Galladay being, I would say, probably your biggest question there. But Sterling Shepard obviously is a weapon as well. Can do some work. So
and obviously Saquon's ankle, right?
Right.
I think all things being as they are, the Chargers being without large parts of their offense, the Giants being without probably without large parts of their offense. 10 points is a large spread, but the Giants are bad. So I think this is the game, by the way. I know I said earlier there's a game this week that I hated the spread on so much that I still haven't really made a decision. This is it.
This is it.
Because of how stupidly injured and just messed up both teams' rosters are, right?
Yeah.
That and you don't know, right? Kadarius Toney being out does help me a little bit. I think I'm gonna go with the Chargers. Um, Jake from State Farm, like I liked him at Georgia. He was a good quarterback at Georgia. And then Mike Glennon. At some point, the meme of Mike Glennon being on NFL rosters is gonna die. Um, but until that time comes, he is still in the NFL somehow.
Yeah. It's like, so I'll make it really. I mean, for me, I went Chargers. Even with that Giants spread, this Giants team is terrible, and they are by far the most injured team. I'm surprised because I know the Titans have been incredibly banged up this year. The Niners have obviously have been front and center for their injury problems they've had left and right uh, throughout the years, the last couple years, this year as well as last. But this Giants team is not only like were they in a rough spot and probably didn't have a great team to start, but they are completely beat up across the board. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think you could name a position on the team and they don't have somebody at least questionable, if not out, right?
I
Um,
I think they still have their kicker from the start of the year.
all right,
if I
deep poll. They might have the punter still. They might have the kicker,
I
long
think
snapper,
I'm
maybe.
not sure about that.
Maybe the long snapper. We might have the second punt returner as well, or something like that, still in the place. No, but like the idea that the Chargers have been such a they are one of the great examples of how this season's gone. Because this was a team, and we talked about in weeks past, the frustration that they weren't able to be the ones to kind of pull away in that AFC West early, when it was really being given up by the Chiefs. It was like, oh, this is the time where this is when the Chargers could take this.
They
This
had to
could be
jump.
their year. And they came out just flat, and then they come out and win a good game, and it was like, okay, yeah, all right, now the Chargers are going, and then they come out flat. They just are so hit and miss. So after a really strong win against the Bengals, if you're to go on this kind of ebb and flow the way it's been going this season, you might feel like Giants might have a chance here actually, but that Giants team's so beat up, and you're talking about Mike Glenn or whatever being back there, all those weapons gone, even with as many weapons as are going to be gone on the Chargers side. You got to hope that Austin Eckler is able to
Yeah.
do a little bit more than he's shown in some of these games. Um, yeah, got to go with the Chargers on that.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't know, man. That's a lot of pieces to be missing yourself, right? And especially like Chris Harris Jr. hurts the defensive side, but it's not like their defense has been spectacular anyways. Keenan Allen and Mike Williams being out
Yeah,
are
it's tough, dude. That's tough.
that's that's hard. That's hard times right there, man. But I'm with you. Even without that, they should have enough to beat this Giants team that at the start of the season wasn't going to be very good, and now they're injured to hell, right? There should still be enough there.
Think we could Yeah, and you know what? With that one, it's just like you just it's there with Herbert too. I think Herbert
Yeah.
just leads the troops in general on this one. Moving on to our next one. I don't even have to say it. I mean, you fucking know where I'm going with this. It's the goddamn San Francisco 49ers. We're going into Cincinnati to face the Bengals. It's going to be a crazy game. Niners obviously coming off a, it's the game you hate to lose the most. More than any
Yeah.
game, I think, this season. Maybe the Packers was a little bit deeper of a cut based on how close we were to just winning that game against what is a really strong NFC component. But
Yeah.
goddamn, we hate to lose the goddamn Seahawks, and we've done it twice this season. Seahawks went in, beat us 30-23, but Cincinnati, obviously that Chargers team we were just talking about. I think this was a Cincinnati team we both felt good about last week, right? I think, if I'm remembering correctly, I might be wrong. Were we both on L? Yeah, we were both on. Yeah, we were both on Cincy last
Yep.
week. Cincinnati is sitting there again. We've talked about that AFC North, sitting there at 7-5. San Francisco sitting there at 6-6. San Francisco going in and it's still getting that -1.5 though. Right now, Deebo Samuel listed as questionable with that groin injury.
And he hasn't practiced this week, so that's never a good sign.
Not a good sign, but it might just be a thing to where you just let him rest that and don't aggravate it with an injury like that. I figure like you
If you're
really
at
do have
the
to.
if you're at the point where you can't practice him the entire week, like he didn't run any reps this week.
No,
Do you send him in with a groin injury, cold, not done anything on the football field for 2 weeks?
I mean you go out there prior to the game and you see how it's feeling. It's very likely game time decision, right? It's gonna be right there.
Yeah, I don't.
They're leaving it as questionable for now. That's basically
Yeah,
what the situation is. So
yeah,
the door's open. It's not doubtful, but it's not. It doesn't look great. Obviously, it's a groin
it
injury.
doesn't look good.
That shit
Yeah, yeah,
hurts.
and
Unfortunately,
it can last for a long time if you're not careful with it. So
unfortunately, it looking like also Eli Mitchell looking to still be out on the concussion protocol.
he is on the concussion protocol. As of a few hours ago, ESPN has him listed as out. So
Um, a whole shit ton of injuries though as well on the Cincinnati side. Few doubtfuls there. You got a guy like Chris Evans, spell back to Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon questionable going in. T Higgins out or questionable. Sorry.
so Joe
What?
Mixon is sick,
Yes.
but he was at practice today.
Oh, okay.
He didn't participate too much as far as I heard. It was just basically, he was visiting with the team doctors and stuff like that and getting his tests done and all that. But the fact that he was at the practice when what you're missing with is sickness tends to be a good sign, I think,
Right.
for Joe Mixon. Um, yeah, we know who you're picking. Should I start?
Oh yeah. No. I mean, yeah. Niners all the way. Um, these are the games where it's surprising. I think right now, as far as healthy backs, we are very limited. You're talking about, I believe Jeff Wilson is still healthy.
Jeff Wilson Jr.
Jeff
That's
Wilson
who they
Jr. is probably going to be the guy getting the carries. I believe Trey Sermon is also potentially injured. I'm not seeing him on the injury list actually, so maybe Sermon gets some play. But yeah, Eli Mitchell obviously being down, and I can't imagine they utilize Debo in the same way as far as being your backup running back or your starting running back, I suppose, like they did before. So probably going to fall into Jeff Wilson's hands. We know that this offense goes with the run. So you're looking at Jeff Wilson. Jeff Wilson can do some pretty
They do
goddamn
also have
work.
Jermichael Hasty.
Oh, they had
who,
okay. So Hasty's still okay. So
yeah.
Hasty's still in there. Okay, so that's interesting. So that's a decent one too. That's
So
two
they have
guys
Jeff
you've
Wilson,
had,
Michael Hasty.
a couple guys that have been there for a couple of years now.
Yep.
And
Know the system, know
you
what they're
trust
doing.
in the system exactly. So that'll be interesting. You are talking about a very strong rushing defense in the Cincinnati Bengals. If there is one aspect that they've had as far as pass versus the run, where they've been good, they have been pretty good against the run. You're talking about a decently serviceable pass game though, for the Niners. So we'll see if they're able to get their running game established. That's a good run game versus a good run defense, right? So that'll be a clash of some strengths there. I'm expecting, guys like we saw Kittle finally pop off. I did call that in last week's game. Jimmy found all reliable yet again. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough. Definitely a tale of two halves as far as how effective that was. Kittle got a lot of love in that first half, and they started closing down in the second half. I'm hoping a guy like Brandon Ayuk could start to step up. We've talked about Jawan Jennings before, maybe be able to get a couple good plays out of him as well. So, yeah, I'm leaning on my Niners, of course, but I'm interested to hear what you have from the non-biased side of this, because we all know where I'm at. So
So I think you covered a lot of San Fran's injuries, but I think you missed the two biggest ones for me. The two that are probably going to play the biggest role in this game, and that's Dre Greenlaw and Emmanuel Mosley both being out. Right, massive losses on the defensive side, particularly Emmanuel Mosley.
yes,
Right,
Dre Greenlaw has been very hit and miss.
he has.
I see that, and it's like, well, Greenlaw's been out a lot of the season actually. So
Yeah, yeah. But Demetrius Flanagan Foles hasn't really given the same production Dre Greenlaw can when he's
sure. Oh
healthy.
yeah, no doubt. Yeah, no doubt.
Right. So that is obviously a big loss. But more importantly, Emmanuel Mosley, right? A lot of pressure for covering Jamar Chase is going to fall on Josh Norman, right? Who, in his own right this season, has had good moments and bad moments.
Right.
Um, I guess the other option would be Quan Williams, but I think you're more likely to put the veteran on him.
Quan's
I
more of a
just,
slot.
yeah.
Quan's more of a slot corner. I
Well,
think
he's gonna have to play outside though with Mosley out, I'd imagine, right? Like who's gonna fill that role if not Quan?
Dante Johnson would probably be your other
Dante
outside
Johnson's
potential.
questionable too.
Yeah, I know. But that would be your other guy. Like if it fell to that.
And I
Um,
can't imagine they're gonna be playing Ambry Thomas out there.
no, I actually don't know who that is.
He's their like
I,
he's like their
I
fifth
love my
option on
Niners. I try to go real deep. I watch preseason
He's
and try
actually
to pick up these guys, but I am not that deep into it.
so fun fact, Ambry Thomas
I'm trying
was
to think if I
actually
ever saw him.
was
I,
actually the guy who made the tackle last week on oh, who the heck was it on that third down play that actually got San Fran the ball back?
oh, was
Uh,
that the Gerald Everett fumble? One of those?
the Everett fumble. Ambry Thomas was actually the one who made
Okay.
initial contact
All
on
right,
that.
respect. I did not realize that. Yeah, no respect.
Um,
Don't.
oh yeah, yeah, no, that's a deep cut. He's not going to be a guy who you hope to play a lot of snaps. So if you don't have Dante Johnson, you're going to be relying on Quan Williams a lot on the outside, and I'm with you. Quan Williams is much better in the slot. I think that defense right now is not in the greatest spot with the injuries that they have, right?
Yeah,
Fred Warner's back.
thank God. Yeah,
How much can he play, right? Is he going to be good for three downs, guy that you expect Fred Warner to be? We'll see, right? Obviously, Mo Hurst being out uh, obviously doesn't help any with the depth at D tackle. There's a lot of bad injuries on that side of the ball for San Francisco.
yeah.
If Debo can play, this is a much harder pick for me. If he can't, I don't think San Francisco has enough offensively to keep up with what Joe Burrow can do. Joe Burrow, by the way, 8-2 against the spread in his career after a loss. The guy's not a guy who stays down for long. If Debo was playing 100%, I could bank on Debo playing Debo's role where he does everything. This would be a very different pick for me. I don't think Debo's going to be good to go.
Yeah.
With that, I got to go with Cincinnati. Right?
I mean, yeah. I mean, there's a reason why this is the tightest spread of the week. This is a tough situation, right at a tough point for both these teams. Like,
100%.
Both these teams would so much rather have a cupcake right now that you'd be able to get hopefully a win. Yeah, I suppose you could argue a lot of teams aren't cupcakes. Teams that are even worse this season, that sort of thing. I suppose that's what you would have hoped for as far as the Niners were concerned when you play Seattle. It's like, okay, they're pretty beat up. I suppose if we got them this week with Jamal Adams injured, I think that game goes a little differently for us. Perhaps we get that one, but that's you can't ever knock it to one thing or another. The one thing I will say, yeah, absolutely. This team's been so banged up, and it's actually a lot of it's been on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
It's been at multiple areas. It's been,
and it feels like it's a new one every week, right? Like we talked about last week, Fred Warner being out, right? Now he's back, and then you lose Emmanuel Mosley, and it's just.
Mosley has been down multiple times this season. I mean, we haven't had Jason Verrett. That's been a tough one. Yeah. Josh Norman, he has had, I mean, he's going to have the toughest, it's always going to be a tough job for him. Right now, he's into, that second half of his career.
Yeah. This isn't the same Josh Norman from Buffalo.
He's been brought in to, off of out of free agency, having to kind of step up here. The one thing I will say is we have had the fortune. I've brought them up before, and I think as far as I've seen, yeah, luckily they've been able to stay off the injury report as of coming back. You're talking about your two safeties. In Jaquarci Tart. I mean, yeah, you got even in the other DBs, you got a Hufanga back there and stuff like that. It'll be interesting to see, because some of these DBs, they haven't, when we're all healthy, they won't be seeing starting time, but they've had to see starting time at this point. They've had to come into games. There's been so many injuries that they eventually have been able to take these snaps.
Like I said, I had to call it Ambry Thomas's name.
Ambry Thomas, yeah, exactly. Like, oh shit, yeah, no, step it up. All right, respect. I didn't know you, but that's been something they have dealt with continuously out the season. So it's nothing new, I guess. It's just like, all right, yeah, another week. You just hope that you just don't get banged up anymore as it is. Maurice Hurst is a damn shame. I've really liked how he's been playing. They've been having a pretty good rotation at the defensive line as well, though, as far as the Niners are concerned. A lot of guys been able to kind of come in, in a rotation aspect. Yeah,
it's really banged up now because you were already down Kinlaw. Now you're down Hurst, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's essentially Kentavious Street and DJ Jones right now, right? Like, I think Givens has gotten some time, but not that much.
Oh no, he's gotten a little bit. I mean, if you watch that game at all, really in that early part of the game, DJ Jones absolutely fucking flying around out there. He got within 2 plays. He got I want to say it was a tackle for loss, like a 4-yard tackle for loss on a run play, just completely blew up a run play. And then the next play is able to go out on a screen pass from his defensive line spot, go out, punch out the ball, and force a fumble. So, on 2 plays, tackle for loss for 4 yards on a run play, going out, running out there, and getting a strip on a screen pass. I was very impressed by that little two-play sequence for DJ Jones, a guy who's been around on this team for a bit and has had to play quite a bit bigger role because of how many injuries that line's had this season. So it's been good to see from him.
As an aside, just going back to Ambry Thomas, I didn't realize they drafted him as high as he did. He was a third round pick for him this year.
Oh wow, oh that's surprising. I didn't realize that was third round. Really, third?
Yeah, he had a pretty decent career out of Michigan.
Hmm.
He had a pretty decent career out of Michigan. The people who watch a lot of Wolverines football, I heard a lot about Ambry Thomas going into the draft, but I had kind of always thought he was projected fifth, sixth round kind of thing, so I didn't know he went that early. Um, yeah, uh, he is a guy, no doubt, who can play for you if need be, but certainly he's not going to replace Emmanuel Mosley, right? And
Yeah.
I just wonder, like they need Dante Johnson, right? If he's not there, that cornerback spot's going to be really thin,
Yeah.
right? And you're going to
Yeah.
have to ask a lot out of Quan Williams, who I like Quan Williams much better in the slot than he is on the outside.
Yeah. All right. So that will be our third split of the week. There, it looks like me, of course, on the Niners. You on the Bengals. Um, go on to this next one. We got. It's gonna be a pretty good one, and especially off of the that crazy windy mess that was the game last week. This is a very important one for the Bills. I mean, important one for the Bucks as well. But we got the Buffalo Bills coming in at 7-5, going against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 9-3. Tampa Bay getting 3.5 points here at home. We're talking about the Buffalo Bills team that obviously, yeah, that 14-10 loss that they just had against the Pats earlier after or before the bye week. Prior to that, really strong win against the New Orleans Saints. This Tampa Bay Buccaneers team, offense doing pretty goddamn well. Defense a little bit up and down, but 3 straight wins handling business against the Falcons, Colts, and Giants. Right off the bat, this was a gut check one for me. Just seeing how those teams played last week, seeing they didn't have to attack them as far as the secondary of this Buffalo team, and that's the one aspect that you got to be really worried about, given Tavarius.
Davies White.
Yes, thank you. Tre'Davious White being injured. I am fully expecting Brady at home here to come out firing. I have the Bucks in this one myself.
This is one that I struggle a lot more with than I think you did, because I initially had Bills. I actually have Bills written here. Buffalo's got the best pass defense in the NFL right now, as far as passing yards allowed.
Right.
And my thought on that was, if they can do enough without Tre'Davious White, even to just limit Tom Brady, that Tampa Bay defense isn't great. They can probably put up enough points, right? Like, I know the Bills' offense didn't look fantastic last week. Let's take that game, throw it off into a corner. That game doesn't show anything about what this Bills' offense is. This Bills' offense can be pretty good. The more I think about it, the more I don't think without Tre'Davious White, this Bills defense can do enough. Right? Because Leonard Fournette is an absolute beast. Right. And he just watched the Bills give up 222 rushing yards to the Patriots on Monday night. And he's going, thank you. I will play that game. If they can suck an already weakened Bills pass defense into the box, force them to guard Leonard Fournette, Brady can probably pick them apart, especially again. Tre'Davious White would have been such a big part of this game, right? No matter who you wanted to put him up against, whether it was Evans or Brown, they might have even looked to flex him in against Gronk, right? And just try to shut down whoever they're fearing at that time. I have a feeling that Tre'Davious White would have seen multiple different receivers in a game like this. It's hard to recover for a guy like that, right? Tre'Davious White, a fantastic hockey goaltender. If you haven't seen the video of the Tre'Davious White goaltending academy, look that one up on YouTube when you have
Nice.
some time. Hilarious shit. But B is an unbelievably good cornerback and kind of a do-it-all cornerback, right? He can stay with fast guys. He plays zone well. He plays man well. He does everything well. I don't think the Bill. I'm gonna go with the Bucks. I don't think the Bills can cover that production, right? I just don't. I could be wrong about that, right? I could be underselling the rest of this pass defense, right? But I think any team's gonna struggle losing a guy like Tre'Davious White, and this is gonna be their first actual test against a
Right.
team that's going to throw the ball against them, right?
That's what I'm
So
thinking. Yeah.
yeah, I'm with you. I initially wrote Bills, but I think I'm gonna take the Bucks here.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's a Tampa team that uh, they have gotten quite a bit healthier. That defense that has been banged up. I mean, granted, they did play last week against the Falcons. They did play that game. There was actually a little bit of a time there, right, where Atlanta was hanging around
It was
for a
exactly the
half,
game that I told you it was gonna be,
and
right?
then second half it was done.
You
Yeah,
know, for a half, three quarters, Atlanta will stick in there, but sooner or later they're gonna break,
right.
right? I could see this game being very similar, to be honest with you, right? Where the Bills hang in tough, they're a good team, but ultimately without Tre'Davious White, can you hold off this all-star team of talent that they've put around Tom Brady? Right? I just don't think you can.
Yeah, gotta agree with that. I think it's just gonna be a little too much offense, but yeah. Let's go right into it. We'll just go on to the next one right here. This one, I don't have a lot for this one. I made this pick just immediately, and again, this kind of goes against some of my what I have played in previous weeks. I try to get very cute with the numbers and like, oh, realistically, how many points? This is what I feel is. I just gotta believe in really just sticking with the better team on this one. We got the Chicago Bears going in to Green Bay to play the Packers. Bears sitting at 4-8 here. Packers at 9-3. Packers getting minus 12.5 at home, which is obviously that's the biggest spread of the week. Week of big spreads. That being said, the Bears are pretty god awful, and the Packers have really been hitting their stride. I think that's you gotta say at 9-3, outside of the Cardinals and Tampa Bay right there. I mean, right there, Tampa Bay, Green Bay, right there. I would say floating that obviously same record, so it's easy to say that. But Cardinals maybe just that little notch above.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Clear 2 threes that you have for Tampa Bay and Green Bay here. Yeah, give me Green Bay at home to
All day.
dominate this game. Green Bay, all
All day.
right, Green Bay. There we go. Easy enough.
Um,
Moving
I
on now. We
mean,
don't even have to start. No, just let go for it.
you know my opinion of Matt Nagy as a head coach,
Right.
right? Like the Bears don't have much talent to begin with, and they got a head coach who doesn't know how to call an offensive game to save his life. How much do you think the Bears would have to? How much do you think the Bears defense would have to realistically give up to cover this spread? Right, with how bad their offense is. To me, it's like 20 points, right? If the Bears can hold them to 20, they might be able to cover the spread. I don't think Chicago's scoring 10. Green Bay's defense this year, this to me
13,
screams.
13 points. I would say Chicago.
So you need to keep Aaron Rodgers under 26.
Yes.
Good luck.
Well, that's why I took Green Bay,
yeah. But that's my point here, right? Like even though the 12.5 is a lot, when you really break down the way this game looks, Green Bay's easily going to score 30 here, I think. Right? Like there's no question in my mind Green Bay scores 30. And there's no question in my mind Chicago doesn't score anywhere close to 20. So to me this is a pretty simple 36-37 to 10, absolute steamrolling.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a defense that I thought was showing out pretty well. And if you look at your total yards against for the season, this Bears team hanging in there. You talk about top 10 total yards against, 6 in passing, rushing yards not so well there. A interesting kind of flip flop that this Packers team's had. This was a team that was really running the ball. I felt well, like kind of in that early to mid part of the season. Rodgers been able to turn it on a little bit more. Their passing game's taking a little bit more of a forefront in their offense. There's still a little bit of a middling offense as far as their points scored are concerned, but their defense, as you kind of mentioned before, their defense is stellar as far as the Packers are concerned. So you got to feel like a guy that's already struggled in Justin Fields is not going to have a fun time playing against these guys. The one thing I will say that works into this Bears' favor, you do have a offensive line that is able to, or a defensive line, I should say, and overall just a defensive scheme. They get sacks. They're able to get to the quarterback a decent amount. Rodgers does have the injury to his foot, to his toe. And, you got to figure not going to be so flexible as far as getting out of the pocket. So if there's one thing that the Bears are going to have that's going to keep them in this game, it's going to be getting to Rodgers quickly, get him too early in the game, creating, just a little bit of havoc for him. But, yeah, there's so many things that are going the Packers' way, I feel like, in this game. The momentum-wise, how this team is playing. And the Bears, they've had, they've had no good, like, even that, like, you win against Detroit, but you win 16-14. Like,
yeah,
how much are you, like, oh, yeah, you're really
Great
confident.
by Detroit.
How are you confident in your offense after that? But,
Yeah.
it is,
They had one good offensive game, and it was the game Matt Nagy didn't coach against San Francisco,
and
where that offense actually looked a little bit dynamic. It had a little something to it. It wasn't mind-blowingly, amazingly good because there's just not enough talent on the offensive side to be that. But it actually showed some dynamism, right? We talked about it. Justin Fields actually looked like what we thought Justin Fields could be, right? And then Matt Nagy came back, and it all came to a screeching halt again. Right? It's so amazing to me how obviously bad this guy is as a head coach. Like, you see the difference when the team doesn't have him to when they do. And he's still there.
It's still there.
And he's been there forever.
Hanging around. Oh, man. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a large section of diehard Bears fans that want nothing more than this team to just lose out. Not because they want a high draft pick. They just don't want Nagy there anymore.
Just get rid of, like, listen, Chicago, for some reason, they're like always that team that goes below 500 or at 500 and somehow sneaks into the playoffs. And it's like, well, look, on the up, baby. We made the playoffs. Right. They got to get Nagy out of there. And you're right. With the way that management's going, you can't be confident he'll be out of there if you go 7-10, right? Like, Bears win a couple games down the stretch and go 7-10, they'll keep him around.
Yeah, I think we got something here. Give it a shot. Let's run it back one more time. I go 8-9 next year. The final game.
Monday night.
Pretty damn good game here on Monday night. This was a gut immediate pull, just because I think you're talking about probably, when they're healthy, the best looking team consistently out there. Got the LA Rams at 8-4 going into Arizona. Play the Cardinals. Cardinals sitting at 10-2 and getting 2.5 here, -2.5 at home. This is immediate. I see Arizona. I'm taking Arizona, especially with a less than 3-point spread against them there. This Rams team, obviously, they have shown some inconsistency in some of their games. Obviously, a pretty damn strong win there off of from Jacksonville. But prior to that, losing 3 straight. Again, pretty good opponents, you would say, though, in retrospect. Tennessee, the Niners, and the Packers losing those games. But definitely a team that I think is still needs to get to, themselves gelling. Unfortunately, we've brought up every week. I think they really miss Robert Woods, and I think Matt Stafford is going to perhaps keep this game, pretty damn close. But this is only 3 points we're talking about. We're talking about a Kyler Murray led Cardinals team. Give me the Cards.
Yeah. I mean, Sean McVay is 8-1 as a coach against the Cardinals.
Nice. Wow.
That being said, that one is the Week 4 game earlier this season, right?
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
I still like the Rams. There's still something about the Rams that there's too much talent there for me to think that, they're not at least a competitive team. But this Cardinals team, it's good, right? It's deep. Like, Zach Ertz is questionable, and for most teams, you lose Zach Ertz, and you go, that's going to be a tough one. They got so much firepower that losing Zach Ertz isn't going to make him miss a step on offense, right? There's so much there for this Cardinals team. I think offensively, they're probably the best team in the NFL. And their defense isn't half bad, right? It does the job they needed to do. This Cardinals team is very good. And I think this is going to be a Cardinals win, I think.
Yeah. Just initially took a look at this. You don't really even have to look in the stats if you just kind of been aware of how the league and everything's been going. This Cardinals team, when they've had Murray in there, when they've had not Devontae, when they've had DeAndre. Thank you. Jesus, I'm missing the names today. When they've been healthy, for the most part, they've been really goddamn solid. So I have no reason to think at home that this Rams team, with the spiness they've shown, is going to be able to take the game. I think they're fully capable. It wouldn't be the biggest shock ever if the Rams actually came in and played pretty goddamn well and actually took this win. But just initial gut check, like, I can't really, I can't talk myself out of it with like stats and looking at that sort of thing. You just kind of feel too strongly about the Cards, kind of.
Yeah, 100% agree. Right, I might have spoiled it earlier in the podcast when I said that the two teams in the NFL I trust right now are New England and Arizona. Right, like, I'm just, until Arizona shows me a reason to not believe that they're the best team in the NFL, I'm going to keep believing they're the best team in the NFL.
Exactly. Yeah, no reason not to. You're just kind of fighting against it at one point. Sometimes you gotta just accept that, the goddamn Pats are good again and shit. Hate it. All right, so just to go over, just to review, we're all met up on all the games except for Baltimore versus Cleveland. I got Cleveland getting the -2.5 at home. Craig has Baltimore there. Detroit going into Denver. Denver getting -10 at home. I have Denver actually being able to do that. Craig has Detroit being able to beat out that spread. Do you have Denver outright?
I do have Denver outright. I do think they'll find a way to squeak this.
You think that's, just a little closer, as Detroit has been doing for most of the season.
Yeah.
And then the last one that we're split on, the Niners versus Cincy, the closest game of this week. I have the Niners, of course. Craig has Cincy. I guess that is a Debo-dependent decision. Of course, we make these calls and we sync them in on Friday, so we'll find out what it actually is by the time the game is played. But
I will stick with Cincy regardless. But if Debo plays, I don't think I'll come in here shocked if they win if Debo plays. Like, I'm fully aware that Debo playing is a big part of San Francisco winning and losing this game.
Right. And I suppose that is it for the slate right there. Yeah, this will be a hopefully a bounce back week for me. We've been good and then we've been down, just like a lot of NFL teams. We were pretty bad last week, so hopefully we bounce back. I don't have too much as far as extra stuff is concerned. I know we have a quite a nice MMA event coming up pretty soon.
Yes,
right?
I actually have a few topics here, believe it or not. So I'll get to the UFC last because it's probably the thing I'm most excited for. I think this UFC card this weekend is going to be awesome. But couple small things. Have you heard about the Arizona Coyotes? Have you heard this story?
I don't think I have, no.
So there was a rumor that came out a couple days ago that Arizona had not paid its taxes for its arena. Um, Gary Bettman and the Coyotes have both come out and said, listen, there's nothing serious to this. It's just a basic human error. We just, we misplaced forms, forgot to send them in on time, etc., etc. It's not a big deal. The city of Glendale disagrees. I'm going to read you the full statement from the city of Glendale because this is some damning shit against a professional sports team. So, city of Glendale manager Kevin Phillips, his comment was as follows. If Mr. Bettman and the Coyotes organization want to believe that not filing 17 monthly tax returns was due to a human error, then so be it. As a reminder, this was the exact same excuse the team used when they failed to pay some of their employees in a timely manner. Glendale does not have an agenda. We just want assurances that the team will play all of their obligations to the city in a timely manner. Our approach is based on actual experiences with the team. Perhaps the league will be willing to guarantee the city will be paid in full by June 30th, 2022. 17 months they have not filed their taxes. Do you know what would happen if I didn't file my taxes for 17 months? This is bad. Phoenix has lost the NHL, I have this number here, $141 million over the last 10 seasons. This team needs to go. The Arizona thing has failed tremendously. Take the team, move them to Quebec City. It'll make Quebec City happy. It'll make you money. And the people in Quebec City will shut up about not having a hockey team anymore. I see no reason to keep this Arizona thing going on. But if their financial situation is so bad they haven't paid their taxes in 17 months, there's a problem.
Pretty goddamn significant, that's for damn sure. I mean, it'll be interesting to see the I think there's some ownership and that sort of thing that they're able to kind of skirt by, but I think it's one of those things like you only get so long to this shit. Yep. The fact that this has actually gone on for 17 months goes like, yeah, because me or you, I don't know. Like I feel you'd be
we're in claims court for that shit.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they're down your throat pretty quick on that stuff. I mean, I know there are Arizona has been not great for a while, right? Like ever. I'm trying to think of any time where it's been a good idea that Arizona's had a hockey team for the most part. So I have to agree with your point. Like, get him out of there.
Yeah, it's just time. And, Quebec City, they've been complaining about not having a team for a while. And understandably so, right? Their team kind of got uprooted from them in the dead of night, right? Moved down to Colorado, which, don't get me wrong, Colorado's been a success, but I mean, they've had to watch Atlanta come and go, Arizona come and go. They've had to watch Carolina be up and down roller coaster of attendance, right? And they're sitting there going, we would be there every game. right? So just get him into Quebec City. That's my point there. Uh, the Grey Cup is this weekend. The Coupe de Grey, Canada Super Bowl.
All right.
We got the Bombers versus the Tiger Cats, a rematch of the last Grey Cup that played in 2019. This is going to be in Hamilton, so a rare home field advantage game where Hamilton is going to have home field advantage. If you've ever been to Hamilton in December, which I doubt that you have, Tap,
No.
it is cold. It is a very cold place. It is southeastern Ontario, but it's a very windy city, right? Like it gets cold and snowy and disgusting. Classic Grey Cup football weather. Winnipeg's been the best team in the league all season. They're 3-point favorites. For my Canadian fans who are wondering, bet Winnipeg. They should win this game. So just throwing out the Grey Cup love because I'm in Canada. I have to. I've made my opinions of the CFL known, right? I don't love the CFL. It does feel like NFL light. But football is football.
It's a I kind of like some of the things that CFL has at least represented some sort of professional league outside of the NFL, right?
Yeah.
If it served as anything, it served as like a pseudo AAA, I guess.
Yeah.
Not really though, like not in the strict sense. Like there's
More
very
of, like,
very little crossover, right? But
yeah, if you're gonna look at it like that, it's more of like the Nippon League in Japan, right? Where it's a legitimate place for players to go and play and have a career,
right.
right? You're not necessarily going to be paid NFL money, and it's not NFL caliber, but it is a professional league where you will be paid, and you know where it is, right? So shout outs to the CFL. And then you mentioned it earlier, UFC 269
Yeah.
tomorrow night. If you have not heard about this card, it goes a little something like this. Your main event, Dustin Poirier challenging Charles do Bronx Oliveira for the lightweight title. You got Amanda Nunes defending her bantamweight title against Juliana Pena.
Yep.
Jeff Neal and Santiago Ponzinibbio has banger written all over it. Kai Kara France and Cody Garbrandt in his debut at flyweight should be fascinating. Sugar Sean O'Malley leads off the main card. On the prelims, you've got Dominic Cruz and Pedro Munoz. You got Josh Emmett and Dan Ige. It's stacked to the wire. I'm not going to go through every fight and predict. That's going to take a while. I will
What's
go
your
through
lock?
things.
I want Craig's lock of the night. What's the
lock?
easy? I mean, I guess
So-
a couple of these there are, as far as percentage of what people are taking, there are a couple ones that are pretty substantial. So I guess there's maybe an easy call for lock of the night. But what do you
Easiest
think?
lock of the night is
Easy one.
Amanda Nunes.
Sure.
Right? Easiest lock of the night is Amanda Nunes, but you're going to make no money there.
Right.
I will say, I'm going to shock some people because I know where the betting's going on this. Craig pick of the night, not necessarily a lock, but if you're looking for a bet to make some money, Charles Oliveira by submission is probably going to get you some money. I know the line's been fading Dustin Poirier, and I get why. He's looked phenomenal. But Charles Oliveira gets criminally underrated time and time again by people in and around the UFC. This guy, all he does is go out and submit dudes and win fights, and his stand-up has gotten surprisingly good. He just recently knocked out Michael Chandler, obviously, but like he just made Tony Ferguson look silly. The way he beat Kevin Lee, right? You go back to like, I don't think he's lost a fight since freaking 2017 when he lost to Paul Felder. Like, the guy just goes out and wins, right? And his submission game is nasty. I know Dustin Poirier's stand-up is really impressive, and that's where a lot of people are looking at, but Charles Oliveira is no joke on the feet. Yeah. He's going to find a chance to get Dustin Poirier down, and I think once he gets Poirier down, the guy's got the submission game to back it up. So if you want my against the betting line pick of the night there is going to be Charles Oliveira. I'll quickly throw out on the main card, I think Ponzinibbio beats Jeff Neal. I actually like Kai Kara France as the underdog against Cody Garbrandt. Kai Kara France is a guy who gets criminally underrated because the flyweight division just doesn't get enough love from the UFC.
Hmm.
But Cody Garbrandt's never cut to this weight before, right? You don't know what that's going to do to a guy's body. Not getting an easy fight. I'm going to take Kai Kara France. And then obviously, Sean O'Malley should win the opening fight on that card. For those of you who might be on the fence and might want to go, I think I should watch these prelims to see the trend. Uh, I agree because Josh Emmett and Dan Ige has fireworks written all over it. These are two guys who love to bang, hit hard. Like this fight has just a lot of fun written on it. As well, if Tai Tuivasa wins, get to see somebody drink a beer out of a shoe, and really, what more could you possibly want?
Yeah.
The card is stacked from top to bottom. Like you got Andre Munoz and Eric Anders on the Fight Pass prelims. Those are the prelims they show before the fight, and Eric Anders is a legit freak athlete facing a top 15 guy in Andre Munoz. It's just stacked top to bottom. If you're a fight fan of any kind, this UFC card is just going to be bonkers.
Yeah.
At the very least, watch the prelims. They're free, and it's going to be awesome.
Yeah. No, definitely. Looking forward to it. I mean, yeah, it's a pretty goddamn stat card. And, yeah, you got to love that main. The whole main is looking good. And, yeah, some good names there on the prelims, so you got to check those out.
That's it from me.
Yeah, I think that will wrap us up. I think I had something, but I think we could save that till next week. Just be fine doing that. So
I will say, throw a really quick out. We like to keep it light here. Rest in peace to Demaryius Thomas. Awful news to wake up to. Fuck, he was so good. And I know that doesn't matter much when somebody dies, right? Obviously, a lot of the conversation around what's happened with Demaryius Thomas is the fact that everybody's got a picture of him smiling with them somewhere or a picture of him on the sidelines cheering up everybody. He was that guy, right? And everything I've read about it, it's been a hard loss for the people who knew him.
Oh, yeah.
33 is way too young, and it just sucks, man.
That's how old I am, dude. And it's like you got somebody who's way taking care of themselves way better than you, same age as you, and yeah, that's some crazy shit. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, thoughts and prayers, sort of deal, and just it's kind of these are the sort of things that where it's like there's situations, and I think when you're talking about stars and players, that sort of thing, there's a lot of those unfortunate stories to come out, and obviously you talk about death of somebody, but like this is a guy who I think was really fun to watch, and as far as impact with people around him, seems is going to be really missed. So it's a damn shame. Definitely, rest in peace there.
Yeah, that's all I got.
Well, that will be it there for us. This is going to be the end of episode 7 here of the Sports Clichés podcast. I'm glad you're able to join us. Make sure to check us out every Friday. We are live on twitch.tv/TapAtioj, TapAtioj. You can also catch us on YouTube. Look up the Sports Clichés podcast on there. You'll be able to find us. We will be back next week with our seeing if our guts were right and seeing how these picks go. But yeah, hope you have a great weekend. Thank you for stopping by, and see you next time.